with using ground up rubber pellets, how does that compare to the exposure we get from automobiles and trucks and every other wheeled vehicle?
That's a
But it depends on the dust that's created, and tires create a really
Why is
tiny
that a red
dust.
herring? Why is it a red herring? And how do you
just
differentiate?
because one's bad, you should allow all the others?
No, but I think the exposure should be
You think
compared.
cars put out PFAS?
If they're in tires, sure.
That's a good idea.
Tires.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's the size of the particle that gets created. Tires create a very, very tiny particle. I don't think that's going on, right, but I don't think that's going on. I think tires are bad. I think they've shown tires are pretty bad.
Well, they've certainly shown that there are higher incidence rate of cancers the closer you live to a freeway.
Yeah.
That's not from PFAS, that's from the PM 2.5.
Yeah. And there's a lot of,
How do you know? How do you know?
Because it's works. You're not sitting there with your face next to your tire. When you fall on a soccer field, your face is right in those.
If you're stupid enough to sit there and keep your face next to the turf, I guess.
So you're playing a whole game with the sun beating down on it for, how long is a soccer game? 90 minutes?
Yeah, if it's pro or if it's old kids.
That's a little bit different than sitting.
An hour for kids, yeah.
Well, I'm out there a whole lot longer than that. And I'm refereeing, I could be out there for 4
Well,
hours.
that explains it, Matt.
It might. I don't-
.30. I call this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call?
Yes, you can. Commissioner Callahan?
Here.
Commissioner Krazan?
Here.
Chair Bauer?
Here.
Commissioner Kilroy?
Here.
Commissioner Light?
Present.
And Commissioner Abelman?
Here.
Welcome, welcome. For the record, Commissioner Carlson is not here, but we do have a quorum and we can conduct business.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And at this time, I want to ask Commissioner Kilroy to lead us in a salute to the flag.
Would you all please stand? Hand over your heart. Oops. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right. Approve the order of agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Actually, it sounds like we have people, are people here to talk on the Harbor Patrol issue? Is that what the audience is? What if we move that to the front and then we can do our, what is it, election?
Yeah, it would just mean that Chair Bauer runs that portion of the meeting, but that's totally acceptable.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
I'd like, just to get people out as earlier.
No, I think that makes sense. You want to, does that require a
I'll make
motion?
that motion.
So it's a substitute motion, you want to amend the original motion?
Correct.
Nice.
So, both. Okay.
Robert's rules is alive and well. Good, good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it's so moved. All right, blue folder items first, right?
Correct. We do have a couple of blue folder items. One was just, well, they were both distributed via email earlier today. One was the fire department's PowerPoint presentation that they're going to go through with you tonight for item L2, which is now item L1. And then the second item was a non-agenda topic about the Portofino boat slips from Mr. Martin. We heard from him last meeting. He has submitted some more information as well. And with that, that concludes our blue folders.
Do we need a motion to receive and file?
Yeah, I think we do, right?
Yes.
Motion to receive and file?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, moving on.
Where did you say those are in here?
So they were emailed to you,
Oh,
and then they will be uploaded to the city's webpage via the agenda page
Okay, so
after the fact.
So I need to go to my email to find them.
Correct.
All right, we move to the consent calendar. Approval of the affidavit of posting for the Harbor Commission and the minutes, which we can do at the same time. Yes,
I need
Commissioner
to
Curran.
recuse myself from the September 11th minutes because I wasn't here.
You move? Or you just do?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I just did.
I think you
Well,
can, yeah.
If you want to second my motion.
I'll second the motion. I mean,
So I'll make the motion to approve as written, both items.
All right.
Without
Second.
pulling.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I'm hearing none. We move to excluded consent calendar items, of which,
Anybody from the public?
oh, yes, that's right. That's right. Let's open up public participation on non-agenda items. Do we have anybody from the public that wants to speak on non-agenda items? Seeing none, do we have any e-comment, Dave?
We did receive one green slip that I believe should have made its way over to you from
Oh, yes,
someone
here
who
we
would
go.
like to speak.
Right, all right. Would like to hear from Brent and Daniela on the topic of the fire department.
That will be,
Oh, that's on the
right,
agenda.
that would be the
Thank you, Dave.
My
item
apologies.
L1, right?
All right, so motion to close the public agenda. Do we need, I don't know, we need a motion. All right, just close it. Close the public, thank you. I'll hag it. All right. Ex parte communication, we do not have, nope, so that's,
And
doesn't,
just for some edification, ex parte communication only really relates to public hearing items. We don't have any public hearing items. This is where you would disclose who amongst staff, the public, maybe another commissioner that you talked to leading up to the meeting.
right. So we don't have any items continued from previous agendas, but we do have items for discussion prior to action. Okay, so this now goes to the present, do we do the presentation first?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll invite our fire department to do a presentation. They'll answer any questions that you may have. Then you can open it up to the public where they can ask questions, make some comments. And then if you have follow-up questions to the fire department, you can fire away at that point too.
Beautiful, let's do that. Let's move to L2. Thank you so much.
So we've got Patrick Butler, our fire chief here. We've got some other members of the Harbor Patrol as well as Jason May. They're going to walk you through their presentation of the harbor.
I brought the Armada.
Great.
Hit present, you'll see whatever he puts up there.
Good evening, Commissioners. Patrick Butler. I'm the interim fire chief and harbor master here in Redondo Beach. I'll do a quick intro and then Chief May, who's our chief of operations, who's also a longtime county lifeguard, will kind of run the presentation. And then you'll have each one of our Harbor Patrol members, these men up here behind me who work on Harbor Patrol, are each going to provide their presentation on a specific slide. And so a little bit about my background in terms of the marine environment. I spent 32 years in the Los Angeles Fire Department. I'm the former captain of Fireboat 2 in the Port of Los Angeles, 105-foot vessel that at the time was the most powerful fireboat in the world until I think Long Beach just built one recently. So I have a lot of experience in the Port of Los Angeles as a fireboat captain. As an assistant chief of the fire department, I was the chief executive safety officer, the chief executive public safety executive for LAX and the Port of Los Angeles. And so one of my commands in that billet was I oversaw LAX and the Port of Los Angeles, and I developed a pretty good understanding of running large-scale port operations. Personally, I have a marine background. I have over 600 hours logged in open waters. I used to ferry boats down to Cabo for fishing tournaments, and I had a sport fisher myself, and I have a lot of background in the marine environment, and most of that came from my dad. I was a boat owner, and while I was sad to see it go, it was a lot of money to maintain, but I enjoyed owning my boat. My dad taught me most of my navigation skills. My dad was a navigator on 2 Transpacts, which is races from the main island here to Hawaii, and that's before the days of GPS and Loran. And so I learned a lot from him. He passed on a lot of his knowledge to me, and I'm really, proud that I was able to share that time with him. In terms of tonight's presentation, I want to provide a firsthand account of kind of what your Harbor Patrol does. I've been here a year. This is my first year as serving as the interim, and I think it'd be a good opportunity just to give an overview of what the Harbor Patrol does, and also what some things down the road that we'd like to do. And so with that, I wouldn't be able to do any of this without the folks behind me, because they are the ones that make it happen. And so I will have Chief May come up here and kind of start the presentation. Unless there's any questions right now, or if you want to hold off, we'll just move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Division Chief Jason May. I usually have the pleasure of, or honor of, introducing the harbor stats to all of you, but tonight we get to talk about and specialize in what our Harbor Patrol does on a day-to-day basis. It's an incredible honor to be with you. To give you my background and why I'm serving in this current role, I've worked for the Redondo Beach Fire Department for approximately the last 21 years, serving across ranks, including firefighter, paramedic, engineer, captain, division chief, and in the last 2 years, and why I'm talking tonight, the division chief in charge of operations, which harbor operations fall under my purview. Prior to my employment with the city, I've worked 5 full-time years with the County of Los Angeles lifeguards, serving both from a beachside response and also on the rescue boats, both in Cabrillo and over at Avalon for short periods of time, but I'm working in that capacity with that agency prior to working for the city. But I'm very excited to talk to you about our operation tonight. Most of you already know some of these details, so we'll provide a cursory overview. The key point of tonight's presentation is for you to get to talk to our Harbor Patrol officers, ask those operational questions you really have questions about tonight, and digging deep in terms of the day-to-day operations and some of the amazing things that they do on a daily basis. Hopefully our presenters will touch on some of those unique situations and unique rescues they've made over the years, but they really provide premier level service to our harbor community, which is a vibrant and very important part of our city. In terms of staffing our harbor, we have 2 officers on duty 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. 3 of those members are seated with us tonight, and they'll be presenting and talking about our different topics tonight. Not only are they Harbor Patrol officers, but all of them come from the fire department. So they originally served as firefighters, paramedics, and engineers before qualifying to work down in the harbor. So they have a lot of experience providing emergency medical services and fire service response. Congruent to my professional experience, all of the members that are with us tonight also served as ocean lifeguards with either California State, Huntington City, or the County of Los Angeles, such as myself. So they all come from a strong water background prior to being employed with the city as a firefighter, but then kind of return to our roots, much like I'm returning to my roots as water-based responders. Sometimes
So can I ask you a question on that?
Yes, sir.
So they come from a lifeguard background, all of them, correct?
Not all of them.
Okay.
The 3 members that are presenting tonight have
They
prior
required to
water
have
experience.
certifications for rescue swimmer and all of that?
No, but they did qualify as lifeguards with those agencies prior to their employment with us. And every year they were required to requalify in a swim test. So they keep up their swimming skills and are ready to respond.
Well, swimming's different than rescue swimming, right?
Correct. They make it a time
I
standard
can
to make sure
swim, but
they're
I can't
fit.
rescue.
Right. So they qualify by a similar standard to the LA County lifeguards, a time standard showing that they are fit to make rescues in the water. They also go through about a year-long process when they're onboarded into the Harbor Patrol setting, where they're learning things like towing, boat fires, rescue swimming, making rescues around the pier. We have a pretty extensive Harbor Patrol training manual that we onboard members as they serve in that role.
So you have qualifications for both positions? Established minimum
Yes.
qualifications?
We do.
Where can I find those? Because I found 1993 ones, but I can't find anything current.
Those are internal training documents. I'm happy to share with you offline after the meeting, but those are our internal training documents that we use as our Harbor Patrol
And
training.
they're mandatory minimum qualifications?
Correct. It's a task book style qualifications. So they work with a mentor walking through all those different competencies that we require for our Harbor Patrol members.
And does the city pay for that training?
They do it as on-the-job
Certifications?
training almost. So they qualify for the position, they make some basic qualifications, and then they're paired with a senior member of the Harbor Patrol and then work through that task book
Well, but
qualifying
like
them.
boat operator license from the Coast Guard is not something the city can bestow on somebody.
Correct. So it depends on which class we're talking about. Their Coast Guard license, which is not required by us, is something that the city will pay for the class, but not necessarily pay for them to attend.
So a boat operator doesn't have to be?
A towing license through the Coast Guard is not required by us.
So how do you legally tow something as a government entity without having people who are certified in it and trained?
They are trained, again, through our internal training process of validating their skills with other Harbor Patrol members. And because it's an emergency tow, it does not require the qualifications of the Coast Guard.
So we
if
have
if
eroded the
chart-
qualifications for boat operators. Because I have a
what's-
1993 document here that says to be a boat operator, you have to maintain your Coast Guard certification with the endorsement for towing.
Right,
So we've eroded that?
we've changed that being mandatory to being highly sought after.
Okay. And what about scuba?
If we charge the occupants of the vessel for towing, that might be something to consider, but because most of our tows are done in an emergency setting, we qualify under different grounds.
But from a liability perspective, it seems like you would save the city if the people are actually certified in doing what they're doing on their job professionally. I mean, you certify people to operate the EMT equipment, right? The defibrillators, the CPR machines you have to be certified to use those on people, right?
Absolutely,
And that's a formal certification.
absolutely.
But here you're sending somebody out in a storm to rescue a boat that's sinking, and you're saying they don't have to be certified at it.
No, they have to be qualified under our
Qualified, I'm saying
training program.
certified by the Coast Guard. Because that's the only entity I know of that certifies people for towing. If
that
you're
does-
Towboat US, you got to be certified by the Coast Guard.
Correct. Again, those are vendors that do it for pay. One of our key protections for liability with the city is making sure our people are trained. We train on a regular basis and operate under those high storm conditions.
So I mean, my letter, you know, people are trying to say that my letter was to attack the Harbor Patrol. It's not. It's attacking the policies that are eroding the requirements and the training that they should be getting. If you go to Orange County to their Harbor Patrol, they brag that they have 480 training hours and certifications for scuba and all sorts of stuff, you know, the Coast Guard qualifications and all that. I have a 1993 document that at least specifies some certification requirements as mandatory. And even if you're the operator, not the boat operator, the officer, then you had to, within 2 years, qualify for those certifications. And it sounds like we just wiped those off the map. And that is what I'm addressing in that the qualifications of the required qualifications of our Harbor Patrol are being degraded, not by the will of the guys who are doing it out there. I have nothing but respect for those guys, but by the policy that says it doesn't have to be done anymore. So we don't fund it. We don't make it formalized. You know, and like if someone wants to get scuba certified, do you pay? Does the city pay for it?
We currently don't have a dive team with the city, which is part of our presentation night. Talking,
Part of what? You don't
We
have what?
don't have a dive program through the Harbor Patrol.
But if they want to get certified so they're able to do their job, does the city pay for it?
The city would pay for it, yes.
Does the city pay for it up front, or do they make them pay for it and then they reimburse them?
They pay for it and reimburse them through our tree.
And that's a disincentive. You got to take it out of your pocket. And how long does it take the city to repay someone?
Correct. And there's some details with the diving program that we had some long-term tenured people leave the agency in retirement that left some training voids in having that type of program. When they retired, we weren't able to fill that vacancy with that after their retirement. There is a strong interest within the group to restore that program. But again, as you said, it takes an extensive amount of training to maintain a formal rescue diving operation where people are working in high-risk operations. So I think before we move on too much further about training, I think you'd be very impressed with our training program, and when I share that with you, and a skill book that's taught by somebody who's worked in King Harbor for the balance of their career, knows our environment, and has also worked in an emergency towing setting for those tows, because we're not Towboat USA. We're going out in inclement weather, terrible conditions, and working in some very challenging environments, and that towing is slightly different than just moving people around when they have motor fail or harbor entrance. So I understand the sentiment, and obviously if we could, everybody would be certified with that Coast Guard license, but we do have a very rigorous training program. Our members that are speaking tonight can testify to that. They can also.
I'm not attacking you. I'm looking at the history of the Harbor Patrol. I mean, now, if you go back to the 90s, they were their own department, reporting to a harbor director, reporting to a harbor master, and then there was a total staff of 11. Which included the harbor master, a clerk or an admin support, and then the rest were the boat operators and the officers, right? And now we're operating with 6, and you say they're 24/7, 365. I staffed 24/7, 365 operations, which with 2-man rules in classified facilities. It took 5.2 people when you took out vacations, training, sick leave, and all of that. 5.2 people per position. So that was 10.4 people to staff 365, times 24 hours a day. How do we do that with 6 people without tons of overtime and burning people out?
That is our traditional staffing model for the fire department. They run on the same conditions that the rest of the fire department operates. So we work
It's
on
not
it.
though. You have, what is it? You have 24 paramedics, firefighter paramedics, and 12 engineers. So that's what? That's 36. 12 captains. So what are we at? We're at 48. You have 48 people between 2 stations, and you have 6 people at 1 station. And when you roll up on I saw a bike where somebody was injured, I don't know the details, at Torrance and Catalina. Three fire trucks there. 3 fire trucks. Somebody gets injured out on a boat in the water, you're not going to roll 3 fire trucks. You got 1 boat with 2 people who are working overtime. It just doesn't, it just boggles my mind that we're sitting there saying that we're supplying the same services and level of service that we did back in the 90s when we're preparing for our harbor to get much busier. We're investing millions of dollars in the harbor. We're going to build a boat ramp, and we need time to ramp up. You're not going to flip a switch and have qualified people, by the time the boat ramp. So you got to start making those adjustments now. And going from what was 11 people to what's now 6 people, and you're downgrading their positions, you're downgrading their quals. That doesn't paint a pretty picture to me. I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming policy from the time of 1991 till we get to today. And this whole thing was about this, what was a sidebar letter that we saw that was changing position names.
Right.
And it, to me, sounded like it was eroding it. And there's no restriction of the qualifications of those new names. But what it does say is that they're going to cement in the 5% because the boat operators are acting. They're not permanent. Well, the 5% is nothing compared to what a boat captain is in the 2023 MOU that states the pay for a boat captain. So it seems to me like, from a morale perspective, you're not just eroding qualifications and availability of training, you're also eroding morale because you're not paying the guys what they know their counterparts got paid just a few years ago.
So I can't.
And I'm not saying you, the city.
Yeah,
the
I
city.
can't
So
discuss
I'm not
the
you to-
policy or MOUs.
I love you to death, you know that.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. So, but I will tell you that if you want to give us 12 people to run the harbor patrol, we're happy to do it. So I got that covered, no problem.
We're not turning down anyone.
We're not going to turn down extra people,
No,
so.
but I just, how are our policymakers, how is the chief, how is the union buying into this? It seems like they're not represented.
Would you like to talk to the chief?
Yeah, I don't care who talks to it.
No. I think, so one, the main thing is these gentlemen have prepared a really, they spent a lot of time prepping for their presentation tonight. So if we can let them begin just through a presentation, they're proud of what they do. And then I'm happy.
I'm proud of what they do.
Yeah, no. But they are really, they're jazzed and excited to be here tonight. So let's begin with the presentation, and I'm happy to come up and take more questions on policy directions.
Well, can we at least close out that question?
What's the question?
The pay issue.
Yeah, so
Why isn't somebody standing up and saying, this is, fly the BS flag?
So what I want to say
Oh, we're
is-
going to pay them 5% more because
Well,
they
I
were
gotta
acting
say
in
is
it,
that
where the
Emma-
last guy got
yeah.
paid $2,000 more a month.
Yeah, MOU, issues with MOU, employee pay benefits, those aren't negotiated by the chief. Those are negotiated through the city as a process. They're not negotiated through commissions. So I just wanted to, those are all good points, and those are good points when they come up again for
Well,
negotiations.
they're coming up right now. You're about to, your side letter renamed the people. I have here the 2023 pay grade for boat captain. And it's the same as fire captain. And if I add 5% to fire engineer, paramedic, or harbor patrol officer, that's nowhere near that pay.
Yeah, like I say.
It's like
I don't-
$2,000 a month.
I don't negotiate pay for the city.
But you signed the sidebar was your
I
letter.
didn't sign anything. That's between the city and the association.
Yeah. And perhaps it is best to just move on at this point. Then.
Yeah, because,
So you're taking a position you think, so are you okay with it or are you not?
okay with what?
Your people getting kind of
Well, I don't negotiate pay. I wish they get
I
paid
know,
more.
but I'm asking
Yeah.
your personal
Oh,
position.
Personally, you asking me? Yeah, people should get paid more.
So they
Yes.
should get the boat captain's pay. Is your,
It's whatever I'll pay them whatever. Yeah, I'm not in a position to negotiate. I'd
no,
love to.
you don't have to. It's in the MOU today.
Yeah. I don't control the MOU. I don't sign the MOU. The MOU is between the city and the association.
Yeah, and the MOU says boat captain, and it has a rate behind it, and it has a longevity pay associated with it. And if I compare that to fire engineer or paramedic and add 5%, it's nowhere near there.
I understand that. Commissioner, you can bring this up with city management, the negotiating table. I think it'd be great to have public comment about what they should be paid. I think that's really important. Of course, I would want everyone to step forward and, do what we can to support them pay-wise.
So not to put you on, and I like you too, chief.
No, I
I'm
don't
not
think
shooting
anything
you personally,
personal.
but this admin report on the
I wrote
side
it,
letter
yeah.
has your name on it.
I wrote this admin letter. I didn't write the side letter. I wrote context for what this letter was about. That's normally handled by HR. HR handles all employee
It
negotiations.
sounds like the space shuttle when we blew up Challenger, everybody's pointing to
I'm not
somebody
pointing at
else.
anybody, sir. I'm not.
You just,
I think
you
we're off the
did.
track.
Yeah, I think we
Get
are.
back to the presentation.
Yeah, we should
and
come
then
back to the
circle back
presentation.
later.
And in the background, let's figure out
But
how.
that's, but the presentation isn't, I looked at the presentation, that's not what we asked for. We asked to discuss the sidebar letter.
Well, we got to get through the presentation first.
Yes.
Well, it doesn't have quals and certs and.
I want to see it.
Well, I want to see the presentation.
Okay, I will shut up until after the presentation.
Perfect. All right, let's move on and
Okay.
I want to see that presentation
Who's
myself.
up first, Chief? Okay.
Thank
Sorry
you.
to interrupt.
No, it's all good, and we're happy to answer your questions. I understand it's a complex issue, so I'll bring it back to the ranch. I do speak really quickly, so I'll get through my part really quickly, and then we'll get to the meat and potatoes of tonight, which is our Harbor Patrol officers talking about what they do. So staffing 24/7, 2 personnel, that's our traditional fire department staffing model. I understand that we could do more with more, so. Response area for our Harbor Patrol, obviously the primary area responsibility is the 1,500 slips inside King Harbor, water-based. They also share a response district, the west side of Harbor Drive, from Redondo down to Pacific Avenue or across from Captain Kidd's, just the west side of the street. Based on your feedback at previous meetings on harbor stats, we've removed them from going to alarm bells, calls, and fires. They are no longer going to fires on a first alarm incident, but now they respond to medical emergencies. The example I'll give you is if somebody had a medical emergency at the Bay Club, we would want our harbor patrol to get there, even though it's land-based and they'd be in a squad, they're gonna get there a lot faster than everywhere else. And in a medical emergency, time is really important to us.
What if it's July 4th?
We have to, each situation is unique, and we'll
Okay.
deploy resources based on
So
the
it's not
acuity
set
of
in
the call.
concrete.
The acuity of the call, like if there's a cardiac arrest at the Bay Club, we still may send them because that's going to save a life.
Even if they're out on a call in the water?
Even if they're available to respond. If they're already doing something else, we're not going to remove them from towing a boat to go to a call to that. But in a high acuity, high usage time, their commitment is to what I just said, the first point was the water response in King Harbor, the 1,500 slips there. They have a landside response for a small area that borders the harbor, and they also provide an automatic aid response with Baywatch Redondo outside the harbor. So something happening off of Palos Verdes, along Hermosa Beach, boat loses power in front of 2nd Street, they will respond in those situations. But their primary area of responsibility is the water in King Harbor.
Do you view that they have a water jurisdiction outside the harbor? Is there a limit to where you'd?
Their
send
area
them?
of responsibility is King Harbor. And then they provide automatic aid with Baywatch Redondo outside the harbor. So they will respond depending on case-by-case basis about how far they'll go out, depending on QD use. The example I'll give you is they made a very dramatic rescue on Saturday off the Point Furman Lighthouse. I get Furman and Vicente mixed up, but Point Furman Lighthouse, right between us and LA Harbor. And that's a significant distance outside of King Harbor, but their rapid response with paramedic resources was critical in providing medical care to 5 patients that were involved in a boating accident off the lighthouse. That's significantly outside their area of responsibility, but a very important part of what they do. In terms of equipment that our Harbor Patrol uses, they have 2 boats and 1 squad. Their boat, the primary boat you see them cruising around on a day-to-day is a 29-foot Crystaliner. That's been in service for about 15 years now. We've just replaced the motors on it. That's our primary towing vessel. They also have a fire boat, which is about a 25-foot Boston Whaler fire pump in case they have a waterborne fire emergency. They'll respond on that vessel. They also have that squad to respond to that very small district down in the harbor area.
How old's the
Medical emergency.
fireboat?
I believe it's 25 feet. It's a Boston whaler outfitted with a large fire pump that can provide a monitor for those of us that were here when the pier burned down. That was a very important piece of equipment for us to maintain, is having a large vessel that can support some water.
That was more than 25 years ago.
It was 88 or 89. So I was here. Okay, that's what I have. I'm excited to bring up Boat Captain Chad Smith to talk about their waterborne emergency responses.
Am I supposed to change the slide?
I got it. Yeah, just let me know.
Okay, yeah. I think it's another one. Yeah, that's it. Thanks. You know, all these topics here, we could spend an hour talking about each one of them, and I'd be happy to do that anytime you guys want to meet and talk about it. But I'm just going to go like a jet tour through them, keep this fast. But like sinking vessels, when a boat is taken on water, stopping the leak is important because it means the difference between a vessel having some mild water damage or a complete loss, and then it's environmental damage on top of that. This morning we had a boat that sank inside Port Royal Marina, and all of them are unique and take different tools or different methods of raising them. But on this one, we were able to use ratchet straps, ratchet them up while using our dewatering pumps, and then we hauled it to the hull out, towed it to the hull out for emergency hull out. So we carry 3 dewatering pumps, redwood plugs, foam plugs, and the toilet bowl wax. We can plug holes. We can put our swimmers in the water and plug them from underneath. They're all kind of unique. So like, I mean, we can turn off valves, plug hoses. Sometimes the raw water intake is coming in because the engine's on and the hose burst off. So just turning off the engine sometimes stops the leak too. Boat fires inside the harbor create a unique challenge because we know that boats are highly flammable. There's fuel on board. They're all in close proximity. They create exposure issues really fast. So getting on scene quick, which will be us first, and putting water on that fire to contain it to the boat of origin is important. And then once we get control of the fire, stop the spread, we start our dewatering operations because we don't want to sink that boat and it slip. That damages the docks. And again, it damages the environment. So we keep that thing, while we're dumping water in it, we're pumping it out too. Boat fires outside the harbor bring another unique challenge. We know for sure there's people on that boat. They've either abandoned ship or they need to be rescued off that boat. So that's our focus first. Once we get the people safely on our boat, we put the fire out and dewatering operations. These vessels in distress, they come through our station. Either we get it through a 911 dispatch or someone calls our station directly. Most of the time it's over VHF channel 16. And that's what we prefer as well. It's the quickest way to get a hold of us. We're monitoring 24/7. Our harbor is unique. As you guys know, the harbor is unique because it runs horizontal to the coastline. People go 5 miles per hour through our harbor. As soon as they get to the harbor entrance, they throttle up, and that's when they have their engine issues. And then every boater's told, hey, you break down, throw out your anchor. Well, you throw out your anchor at the harbor entrance, it's 110 feet. It never catches anything. So the only 2 places you have to land are the break wall or the pier. And that's why it's important for us to be there quickly. You're not going to land on the sand, which would probably be the best option, but you're probably not going to hit that. Well, if your boat did go into the break wall or the pier, we're all rescue swimmers, as Chief May said, and we'll swim out a tow line to you or pull people out of the water. We hold ourselves to the exact same swim standards as LA County lifeguards. And we train on this all the time. Dive emergencies, Redondo Beach has the second most dive emergencies in all of Southern California, first being Catalina. And that's because of our canyon that's just right off the shore. It's popular. You can swim from the beach to the canyon. And technical divers, recreational divers, and scuba diving training courses are there. If we do get a dive emergency, or when we get a dive emergency, we get on scene and we start advanced life support, all being paramedics. And most of the time, our closest hyperbaric chamber will be Catalina, depending on the sea state. So we'll set course to Catalina, I'll contact Sector LA, request a helicopter, and while we maintain course and speed, helicopter will come down, drop their Stokes basket onto the stern of our boat, we'll hoist the patient off, and because a lot of these dive emergencies are pretty critical, sometimes resulting in cardiac arrest, and Coast Guard's not being paramedics, we'll send our paramedic up, hoist them up into the helicopter, they can continue ALS care all the way to the hyperbaric chamber. When we get missing boaters and swimmers, some of these calls are our most technical as far as like locating these people. Once on scene, we update the Coast Guards with their last known position, the sea state, a type of vessel, or if it's a person in the water, and if they're wearing life jackets. All that information, they'll enter into their SAR Ops program, which is a search and rescue operations computer program. It creates a digitalized prediction model that it shows us if you were to take 1,000 rubber ducks and drop them in that last known position based on the drift over a set period of time with those conditions, where those rubber ducks would end up being. And wherever they accumulate on that computer program is where they'll start our commencement search point. And we had the chance to go up to Sector LA, Cabrillo, and go watch them do that. It was really cool and very neat program and helps save a lot of lives. They've used it. I believe Grant was on a call where they used that, and they found the swimmer. He was on the back of a boat using the restroom off the stern of the boat and fell in. Nobody noticed he fell in from Catalina back to King Harbor until they got back to the harbor. And so
They didn't like him?
yeah, right. Someone pushed him.
That's in partnership with who? Coast Guard?
Yeah, the Coast Guards. Yeah, we work with them a lot. They become our incident commanders on a lot of calls. We integrate with them with everything, missing boaters. The boat accident we had on Saturday night that Chief May spoke about, they were the incident commander on that call as well. And then we fall in line under their unified command. With that, and any air sea disaster goes down off of LAX or passenger jet or something like that. But hazardous material spills, when hazardous materials are spilled into the water, we work to contain the spill, prevent its spread, minimize its impact on the marine life in our community. We have access to 800 feet of boom. We can close off the harbor entrance. We can close off the basin, the entrances to the basins. They actually did this when Santa Barbara had their spill. They closed off the harbor entrance, and then when a boat wanted to come in and out, they just sat there all day and all night and it would open up the harbor entrance and let them out, and then they close it back up behind them. And yeah, that's it for this. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Really great.
Hi, my name is Grant Curry. I want to thank you guys and ladies for having me here tonight. I really appreciate this, being able to showcase what we do. I want to start with a little bit about myself real briefly. I was born and raised here in the South Bay. I'm actually the only one working for the Redondo Beach Fire Department that went to Redondo Union High School. So I find that pretty cool, and to be able to work for the fire department in Redondo and then also in the harbor. My dad had a boat in the harbor. I was one of the little kids sailing at the yacht club, paddling for Lanakila. Even last night, my 18-year-old son was on his 13-foot Boston whaler cruising through the harbor. So this harbor is something that is important to me. It's important. It's where it raised me. It's raising my family. So this is really important.
And what's your position?
I'm an acting boat captain, sir. So I'm tasked with talking about paramedics, and I want to dive into how that started. We have the captains, the boat captains, and then we have harbor patrol officers. And approximately 10 years ago, I got the promotion down to harbor patrol officer. And at that time, all three HPOs, harbor patrol officers, were all paramedics, but we did not have paramedic equipment on the boat. So I went out on a boat call, a young girl under 10 years old on her dad's boat, didn't have her inhaler and having an asthma attack. We jam out there and we get her on our boat. And that's a very easy fix for a paramedic. We have the medication to give her, and very old people and very young people aren't able to compensate very long if they're short of breath. And we had to race in. We had the paramedics waiting for us at the dock, but we had to go a couple miles in the shore, and we could give her oxygen, but that's not what she needed. She needed albuterol to open her up, to help her breathe. So we get back in, and I just kind of shook my head and said, we need to have paramedics on the boat. So I went to a chief at the time, Chief Yang, and I said, hey, what can we explore this idea? Can we talk about this? Can we possibly have paramedics on the boat? Shortly after that, worked it out with our union there and the chiefs. And shortly after that, we became paramedics on our boat. So we are the only paramedic boat in all of Santa Monica Bay. And since that time, I can say without an exaggeration, we have saved hundreds of people's lives in dive emergencies, chest pains, cardiac arrests. I've done CPR on people pretty far out for 45 minutes as we're coming in. And some of these people have lived, even the chest pains and the cardiac arrests. Different medical emergencies on different people's boats. So I was going to talk about some other calls, but we had the call that just came in the other night. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, a little bit about 10 miles out in the shipping lanes. We had a boat that ran into a 25-foot fishing boat that ran into, with 5 people on board, ran into a shipping container in the fog. We couldn't see 20, 25 feet in front of us. We get the call. We race out there. It took a little while to navigate and find out there was some language barrier, some language issues there, trying to figure out their GPS location and things like that. But we just know that they hit something. We didn't know if there was what they hit, if there were other boats, if there were people in the water, if there was debris in the water. So eventually we got to them. We got the 5 patients onto our boat. 2 of them were, I won't say in critical condition, but 2 of them did go to the trauma center. All 5 went to the hospital. The other 3 went to our local Little Company of Mary. And we were able to treat those patients as we were coming back into the harbor entrance. So when we got to the harbor and to our station down there, we had available resources and we were able to hand off and have those patients go to the hospital, which kept us available inside our harbor waters. And then so we talk about these calls going out our back door. We like to talk about the calls going out our front door. And I brought in friends of mine now. They're here. They're going to speak for a moment. But when we go on boat tows and we go on all these calls and we do mooring permit inspections, the people in the harbor, they become our friends. I tow a boat in. A lot of times I exchange phone numbers. I become friends with them on Instagram or Facebook and things like that. And so this community that we're serving really becomes part of our family and we're part of this community. And so we got called to a call at the Bay Club. The lady behind us, she's going to get up and speak in a little bit, her and her husband. And she was having a heart rhythm at the Bay Club that wasn't adequate to perfusing her vital organs. And we arrived there immediately. We do a 1280 kg. We get all her vital signs. We do all the stuff. The paramedics come in. A lot of things that need to be checked are already completed by the time the paramedics show up. We have to do a thing called synchronized cardiovert. It's essentially defibrillating somebody. It's the most unpleasant thing we can do to somebody, unfortunately. But we unfortunately had to do that to her. I'll have her speak to that a little bit, but we were able to get to that call and essentially save her life because we're able to run some of those landside calls. Our district, like the chiefs were saying, is pretty much right along Harbor Drive, the hotels, the apartments, the restaurants, obviously in the harbor and then moving outwards. So being paramedics down in the ocean has truly saved hundreds of people's lives. And I think it's one of the most unique and special things that we are able to provide in the Harbor Patrol. Because when I look up and down the state of California, there's not one Harbor Patrol, not one. We can't point to one that does all the aspects that we do, and especially being paramedics. And I think it's just such a cool thing that we're able to provide to this community that we're serving. So I'm going to pass it off to whoever's next.
Can I ask a question
sir.
before you sit down? You said, on both those examples, you handed off to someone else who took them to the hospital, an ambulance or somebody else in the fire department, correct?
Yes, sir.
I was, and I don't remember the exact setting, and Mark can probably set me straight, but I thought I heard from a Harbor Patrol person, I don't remember who, that they had to transport all the way to the hospital and wait with the patient. Does that ever happen?
Yes, sir. So, from our harbor, will it happen? It would happen in an extreme outlying situation. There was a situation, one of the opening days, a couple years ago, I was talking to Mark Hansen, and we were just sitting there talking. A call came in at the Blue Water Grill. Older lady was having chest pain. We raced over there. We, again, did a 12-lead EKG, got her vital signs. We called the hospital. By that time, the paramedics are showing up on scene with the ambulance. We have her all ready to go. The gurney comes up. We put her on the gurney. We give the report to the paramedics, and they transport her, that patient, to the hospital, and then it leaves us available to continue to run either medical calls, paramedic-related calls, boat tows, boat-related calls, anything that's in harbor waters. So we're always staying down there. And I actually went back to the yacht club for opening day, and I explained to Mr. Hansen about what that was and how that type of call runs so smoothly like that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, any other questions? Okay.
Well, thank you so much. Great presentation. Yeah, really well done.
Is there a chance we go out of order? Oh, yeah. Is there any way that we can go a little out of order? That like I said, I called up. Oh, we're not able to do that? Sure.
Absolutely.
Podium.
So like I said, I become so many friends with so many people down in the harbor. And like I said, this was the call that came in at the Bay Club, and we exchanged phone numbers because I was obviously concerned with how Brent's wife was doing, Danielle. And I called him up when we were going to do this presentation, and I said, hey, I'm doing the paramedic portion of this. I'd love to put a face with the situations that we're talking about here. So I called Brent up, and he gladly came. And I'm going a little out of order just because I want to get them out of here. Let's have him tell his story.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Guy's a good mechanic here, by the way. It's very good. Yeah. So this is my wife, Danielle, and good evening, everyone, and thanks for having us talk and stuff like that. Yeah, she was a member of the Bay Club, and she went into cardiomyopathy. She went out of rhythm in her heart. She couldn't breathe. And if you want to kind of tell what happened, and then I can fill in the blanks. Or,
Yes,
okay.
so that was February 12th.
Well, real quick, we're starting to see a lot more of this now. We saw it with
Yeah.
LeBron James's son,
It's
and
the
we saw it
same.
with in the Monday night in the football game last year as well. So these guys have to get there quick. If they don't get there quick,
They saved my life, yes.
yeah, it could be very, very dangerous. I just want to put that out there. So
He said something very true. He said save many lives, and he saved mine. It's very hard for me to be here and talk because I still remember everything, and it's super, super hard for me. I was running in the treadmill 15 miles per hour because I'm a hardworking and the gym, and my father-in-law had to get there on time, and they don't even want to call emergency. They were thinking like, no, Daniela, it's not serious. It's just normal. So she's going to be okay. We're just going to get her a glass of water. And no, I cannot breathe for 30 minutes. I'm from Colombia, so I call my family in Colombia. I cannot breathe. I call my husband, and then so I go back to the gym because that's where everything happened. So then my father-in-law was having lunch in the Blue Grill place, that restaurant next to. So then he get there, and they put me on the floor, and all I remember is these guys get there and cut my clothes and everything, and then put me in the ambulance. They shocked me, twice. And that's the more painful thing I ever went through in my life. I remember he used to say to me, you are not gonna die, you're gonna be good, honey. And I just was thinking, I had a 9-year-old daughter, and I just say, I cannot die right now. And then after the second time he shocked me, I was able to breathe back. And he saved my life. And I told Brent, after everything happened, I would like to see him and the other guy and thank him, because that's what I'm here, because they was able to shock me and I was able to breathe again. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
coming
yeah.
and sharing that with us.
And these guys did a great job, because we were talking about, they went into the ambulance with their Little Company of Mary, so they were able to relay all the information to the people in the emergency room, so they were on hand with all that as well too. Like I said, when you have these heart conditions, I've been in the medical field for 20 years. When you have these heart conditions, there's no time to wait around. It literally is a matter of life and death. And these guys, what they do, it's great. Plus, there's a lot of elderly people around the Bay Area and in the harbor and stuff like that. So I think these guys are just extremely important with what they do. And back to the initial point when you guys were talking about the lifeguards and stuff like that. I'm a surfer. I've been surfing that break wall for like 30 years. I see these guys picking people off the rocks, by the piers. The kids are up there after hours when the lifeguards are off duty. People are up there drinking. The kids are up on the rocks. You got the fishermen who don't know. We got an El Nino year coming up too. There's no time to wait around for a Coast Guard, whoever, to get these people off the rocks. I literally, since I'm a surfer there, I've seen these guys time and time again going out on those rocks and getting, and that's another thing. A wave comes in, you get hit by those rocks, game over. So very important with what they do. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming forward.
And if you guys want to know what I have a defibrillator.
Yeah, they had to put an implantable defibrillator in her. So it will shock her again if her rhythm gets to a certain point and stuff like that. So.
We're glad you're here to tell us this story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that story. Thank you for taking the time.
So real quick, I want to finish. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, appreciate it. There's those outlying issues that I talk about where we kind of make that decision on call, what's going to save that life. If that means going to that hospital with them, because the reason why she was in critical condition, we needed that extra hand. Usually we take the one person, there's two people in the back. We needed that one extra person. So I decided, I called the audible and I made the call that I'm going to go to the hospital with them to continue with that patient care. That's not the normal flow. But once again, I think we could all agree if that's needed to save a life like her, everybody's going to do that. And that's what we did that situation. So anyways, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Has anybody had a chat with Bay Club about being reluctant to call 911?
So we go over there quite often for calls, quite often. And I don't know exactly why they didn't call 911 right off the bat, but they normally do. And normally we go over there quite often for somebody's working out, passes out or what have you. But anyways, that doesn't seem to be too much of an issue over there.
We kind of stole the show here.
I know.
The rest of you guys got a lot of.
So anyways, I'll come back up in a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job. All right, I gotta follow that.
How you doing? Thanks for having me tonight. My name is Jake Steelman, Harbor Patrol Officer. I've been here with Redondo for 9 years, and I've been down the harbor for about 2 years now. I appreciate you having me. So I'm going to talk briefly about our enforcement. So the bread and butter of our enforcement is derived from Title 12 in the Redondo Beach Municipal Code. And what that does is, as you know, it outlines all the basic rules specific to our harbor area and our beaches here in Redondo. We also utilize a combination of other codes as well. We go off the California Vehicle Code. So that'll give you stuff like CF numbers and registration, stuff like that. Harbors and navigation, when we're talking about like life jackets, navigation lights, and then fish and wildlife. It used to be known as fish and game. So this time of year, we're utilizing that a bunch. Lobster season just started. So the first week or so of lobster season, we're out there a lot, oftentimes till midnight, 1 in the morning, because it just gets so crazy out there.
You check the size of lobsters?
We do not, but we coordinate with Fish and Game, so they're down there a lot this time of year. So they do all kinds of operations down there. They do stakeouts, and they use our crow's nest where the harbor master's office. And
Do they go out with you on the boat?
Sometimes they have their own boat down, but we work with them
Thanks.
really well together. We also utilize the California Penal Code as well, and for that, we'll most oftentimes coordinate with the Redondo Beach PD. So our goal from an enforcement aspect is just to be proactive. That's why we do patrols. We do about 3 patrols a day, and then more on the weekends or the busy days. And our goal is just to really educate the community through effective communication with them. And just be proactive. When we see something, we want to handle it before it becomes a safety issue. So the most common ones, obviously our harbor is a no-wake zone. So if someone's jamming through there, we'll try to get a hold of them. A lot of times it's someone like from Marina Del Rey that came down for the day and they just don't know the rules in our harbor. So, we got to go out there and educate them before it becomes a safety issue. Swimming, snorkeling, diving without a permit, windsurfing, foiling, that type of thing. We We want to make sure that those prohibited activities in our harbor, that we can educate people and to not do those things. Jumping off the pier, obviously, can't do. We had an issue up until recently with the sport fishing pier where we had groups of teens jumping off there all the time. As far as the mooring field, we try to proactively patrol that when we see vessels tied up to the mooring incorrectly, especially if we're going to get some strong wind or some kind of storm or gale warning, small craft advisory, stuff like that. We try to fix those vessels so when the winds hit, it doesn't become an issue. And then discharging sewage into the harbor, we try to be very proactive about that. Whether we see on our patrols, discoloration in the water, or someone that's working on their boat, if they're welding, painting, and they got lacquer going into the water, we want to try to prevent that as much as possible. Because I think we have one of the cleanest harbors in California. So another thing is fishing. We try to make sure that people are only fishing in the designated areas and not overhead casting. They're not cleaning their fish and dumping all that stuff into the water. So yeah, we try to be there for the community. We've established a pretty close relationship with the harbor community over the years. They have, like my partner Grant was saying, they have some of our personal cell phone numbers. They call us at the station. So yeah, we love to do it. And yeah, thanks for having me tonight. I really appreciate it.
I have a question on the legal areas to fish. Is it legal to fish from the break walls and the outside and the inner break walls and the Galveston wall and stuff like that?
I believe so, but you can't clean fish out there. So one of the things we make sure that everyone's hauling everything out with them when they come off of the rocks there, and we can't get it 100% because people fish all night long if the break wall is open.
So it's legal to walk out the long break wall and fish?
Yes.
That's federal break wall.
Yes. But when the surf gets big, when we have especially in the winter when we get those north and northwest swells, we oftentimes shut down the break wall so no one can go out there get knocked off by a wave. So whenever it gets big swell wise, we'll make sure no one gets out there.
Except surfers who jump off.
Right. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
I'm coming back up. The guy that was supposed to do this wasn't not feeling well tonight. So I'm going to step in for him. So storm operations. Obviously with El Nino being a big year coming up this year, that's going to be a big deal. The thing about the fire service is very reactive, right? We call 911, you go out to the address, and you handle the call, and then that's it. The Harbor Patrol, we obviously have that aspect as well, but we have a very proactive aspect of this job. And it's like he talked about in some of the patrols, but one of them is storm operations and storm prep. We go out throughout the harbor, make sure the boats are tied down. We have a big bin of extra dock lines. We tie down extra boats. We even go so far as making sure, like in Moonstone Park, that the trash cans are secure so they're not blowing down and we have the trash blown out through the parking lot and into the water. We make sure that the sails that aren't completely tied up correctly, that we make sure that those are tied up properly on their boats. So if the wind's coming up, you don't have the sails, and we can prevent any type of damage to people's boats. We also hire a third person back the days of the storms when the surf is coming over the break wall. We'll hire back a third deckhand. So we have the boat captain and 2 HPOs or 2 deckhands, just because there's so much work to do. If one of these boats break loose, especially, they always seem to break loose at night, which creates a lot of different challenges.
So during the most hazardous times we have, you put people who haven't been on the boat often?
No. So what will happen is, let's just say I'm the boat captain. They'll hire back Chad and Jake, right? So guys that have been on the boat, they won't take somebody from the fire station who hasn't been on the boat.
Okay, I misunderstood you there.
Yeah, I apologize if I didn't make myself clear. They'll take one of us that work down there, and they'll always have
So you have 3 people on the boat?
On the days of storms.
So you have 6 people total? And you can only draw from those 6 people.
Yes, sir. You know, we enjoy coming into work and we enjoy serving this community. So we do we'll call the chief. We're always watching the weather. That's something that we always do. So we'll call the chiefs and say, hey, just let you know, we got a storm coming in. We got high surf coming in, because high surf doesn't always mean a storm, right? You can have high surf without the storm. So I'm always watching the surf report, things like that naturally. And so I'll call the chiefs to go, hey, just let you know, we got some surf coming over the break wall tonight. What do we think about shutting down Yacht Club Way? We'll get the chiefs involved. He'll handle kind of that aspect of it, maybe get some of that signage up. We'll continue to do water patrols and landside patrols because people like to move the gates that we put up. So we'll put those up, go back, continue to put them back, and making sure that people stay off the break wall, because people will walk out there and it's a dynamic. I was on that call years ago when that rogue wave came over and moved all the cars, and I was on that call. That was unbelievable. Anyways, I was on that, but moving forward, so we got the basin patrols. So this is, I enjoy this. We're just, we get out on the boat and we go to all the different basins. This is kind of our time to not only like get to know the community that we're serving. We stop. A patrol can take a long time because we stop and everybody's having a barbecue and we're visiting with essentially friends, right? And it lets our presence be known that we're constantly out here. People share concerns that they have, something's going on that's in the harbor, and allows us to address it, possibly on our level. And if we can't address it, we get the chiefs involved. But a lot of education goes on at this time. And even just our presence alone is that kind of that law enforcement aspect. And we, like my partner was saying, we take a law enforcement approach through education and communication, and we can get through about almost every incident that we get through in the harbor. Occasionally we got the outliers, but most things can be prevented through, I always say, communication and education, and that's our goal. So we do that through our different patrols, our mooring permit, our mooring inspections. Those are like the moorings that we have out near the break wall. We have a boat out there today. Boat came down from Alaska. People were from McCall, Idaho, retired fishing game wardens up in Idaho. Again, this is what we like to do. This is the type of harbor that we are trying to create, where we go out and we don't just sit in the station. We're trying to engage in the community, engage in the boaters that are coming in and utilizing this harbor. And that's why I think we have one of the best harbors in all of Southern California. I know his wife just flew in yesterday and they're sailing down to Mexico. They might hang a right to the South Pacific or go over to Europe. Again, we know all these things because everybody that comes in that harbor, we go out and we engage. And some people don't know how to take moorings. We teach them how to do that. Teach them how to take the bow line, run down the sand line, and I'll put a deckhand or my HPO on there, and we will teach them how to do that. We give them our phone numbers. We tell them how to work. Some of them don't know how to work a VHF radio. We explain all this stuff. We help people that come in. There's the moorings that you pay for, and then there's the free anchorage that you're allowed to stay roughly 72 hours on. And so we'll teach people how to drop anchor, how to work their stern line and things like that. So a lot of education goes on in those mooring permit inspections. Our vessel inspections are any vessel that changes ownership or changes a slip. We did one today, right? So the boat had changed owners, stayed in the same slip. We go out there, we make sure it fits, can only hang out over more than 3 feet. We make sure that if it has a head, it can't be pumped into the ocean in any way. We make sure their documentation or their registration is valid. And then we give them a courtesy safety check. We make sure that they have life jackets, throwable PFDs, flares that aren't expired, know how to their backfire flame arrestor, all these different things that we make sure that their boat has, so when they go out and they leave the slip, that they're safe. One of the main things that we teach, and I kind of touched on earlier, is our VHF radio. It's such an important tool in the marine environment, and so many people don't know how to use it, unfortunately. And we hear everything. We're constantly listening to the VHF radio. My partner, he's got one of the radios on right now. It's turned down, but he's got one on right now. We always have the VHF radio. When we're up here, the lifeguards know that we're up here. So if something goes on the VHF radio, they can give us a call on our cell phones or on our VHF radio, and we can leave. So that is an absolute huge tool. And one of the things that we teach people is, because we hear everything when we're sitting in our station or we're on the boat, we hear everything from San Diego to Santa Barbara on that VHF radio, all the way out to Catalina, because of our antennas at the station. So one of the main things that we tell people is if you're out there and you have a boat issue, to call us or call that you have Harbor Patrol and say you're out of Redondo Beach, because that clues us in, obviously, and then we can narrow that down, and you're gonna get us responding rapidly. Because sometimes people are like, Harbor Patrol, and we're like, all right, is that Isthmus? Is that Santa Barbara? Is that Marina del Rey? Where are they from? And so you have everybody getting on saying, which harbor are you out of? So anyway, that's part of that mooring permit or the vessel inspections. Is a lot of education. Any questions with regards to that? No? Perfect.
Well, how much time do you spend doing this proactive stuff versus a call that you get on VHF versus not, the 911 dispatch?
Yeah, so we spend most of our day doing proactive stuff. Like I said, the basin patrols is what we spend most of our day doing. We'll go out on the boat, and we go through all the different basins, and even when there's a storm that has come in, it's raining, we have a little pump that we have on our boat, and I'll put my deckhand on one of the docks, and I'll have him walk the whole dock. And there's a lot of boats down there that are beautifully maintained, and they're wonderful boats, but then there's some that, let's just face it, that are never touched and never maintained and things like that. But we don't want to create a problem down the road. We don't want it to sink. We don't want to create pollution. So I'll put the deckhand on the boat, or on the dock, I should say, and he'll walk the whole dock, and he'll check all the dinghies and all the smaller boats, and to make sure that their bilge pump's working when it's raining. And literally, we enjoy the days. I know it might not sound the greatest thing, but when it's pouring down rain and storming, and it's nighttime and it's cold, like literally, we'll go out there for hours, pump out all these boats. We come back in, we put our stuff in the dryer. We literally go take a hot shower, might eat something, get our stuff out of the dryer, and go back out and do it again. And it's just super fun for us to do that. And we just walk all the different docks doing that constantly. And so that's just part of what we do. So a lot of proactive stuff.
You do that walking or from the boat?
We do it what I'll do is I'll just drive, we'll look down and say, we haven't hit this one for a little bit. I'm going to put you on here, hit all these dinghies down here, hit some of these smaller boats, some of the little smaller, like 13-foot Boston whalers that might not have bilges and things like that are going to fill up with water. And then that's how and we're out there, and we're interacting again with some of the liveaboards, right? And so a lot of these liveaboards have our personal cell phones. They call us and they say, hey, a boat has taken on water. Even the boat that we talked about, that had sank today, was a phone call that came in from a liveaboard. And so we have really good relationships. There's 1,500 boats in King Harbor. About 10%, give or take, are liveaboards.
So you're pro liveaboard?
I'm pro harbor. So I just, I love seeing people stand up paddle out there. I love seeing the kids on their sabbats. I love seeing people out there enjoying the harbor. And I think the liveaboards are absolute essential to that harbor. And they make that place real special because they really make it a community.
Thanks. And the reason I asked the question on the, what's the proactive is, when you read Chief Kaufman's report,
yes, sir.
On recommendations for the Harbor Patrol and the fire department in general, he had this breakout of calls and all that stuff. And I didn't think it was fair because I know you guys do proactive stuff, and that's not reflected anywhere in the report. And so I think that unfairly biases the recommendations and the outcomes. And I think it looks bad. I think it was intentionally made to look bad from you have 6 people, but you only have this many calls compared to the stations. And I felt that was a very biased way to depict the roles.
I will say that I don't believe that report was an accurate representation of the work that we do on a daily basis down there. And some of those things are some of the intangibles, right? Some of the relationships and just being present, like we talked about. Let's just say we get 2 calls today, but we were out on the boat already all day today, right? We were visiting with that person from Alaska that came down. I mean, we're making sure that people are safe, that people are taken care of, that they know how to get a hold of us if there's a problem. And so there's a lot of intangibles that we go out and we do constantly. So if you're going to say, if you run this many calls, or, if we run 2 calls, are you worth it? Well, we did a lot more than just run 2 calls.
And I think that's my point is the job is a lot different than your average, not average, but than firefighters at fire stations, right? Where you're kind of waiting for stuff to happen. You guys are, I think, more on the proactive side. At least that's my
Yes, sir.
assessment from what I see. That's more the proactive side. That's preventing more of those calls from getting to where it's an emergency or,
Yes.
where something's in danger or there's property at.
It's a little bit, we're lifeguards, right? So a lifeguard on the beach we're not going to let a child get into a riptide and then go make the rescue. We're going to go down and pull that child out before he even gets close to the riptide. We're going to pull him up the beach. We're going to talk to that child, and then we're going to say, oh, where are your parents at? We'll go up and explain to the parents, hey, just want to let you know, this is where the riptide is. I just let you know I talked to your child. This is what I told him. This is what you need to look out for. And again, kind of relating that to the harbor, that's what we do down the harbor. So we really work hard to prevent these things calls from starting, even though the unit of measurement is always calls. But what we're out there all day doing is there's a lot of intangibles.
Yeah, I think even like some of your tows are probably not emergency calls, but they prevent something from turning into an emergency, like drifting into the rocks or into the pier pilings because you towed early before they got in trouble. Because I forget who said it, but you can't just drop your anchor in the canyon.
Yes, sir. That's a great point. Obviously, the emergency tows are really quick and easy to, and we're going to make sure that we're going to get out there and handle. Now I say easy. I'm easy to determine that these are calls that are emergency situations. We could have a call that's 2 or 3 miles out on a weekend day, standard onshore wind, the boat broke down or out of gas. They'll call us. We're by no means trying to take business away from vessel assist or any private business of any sort. But what we'll do is we'll go out and make contact with them, make sure that they're okay. Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have shade? If there's no bimini or something like that? A lot of times, if it's calm and it's safe, we can take the wife and the children off their boat, maybe leave dad out there. Sorry, dad, but we're going to leave you out there with the boat if you've ran out of gas, and we'll bring them into our harbor. Sometimes, even though they're 2 or 3 miles out, sometimes we just say, you know what? Yeah, you're safe now, but the ETA for Towboat US, and just to kind of give you a quick background on Towboat US, they respond. We don't have them in our harbor. They respond out of Marina Del Rey, and they respond from home. So if you were out there, let's just say 2 miles out off the harbor entrance, and you called Vessel Assist, the gentleman that I know that works there, he lives on this 105 and the 605. So if you call Vessel Assist, that's where he's coming from. He's coming from the 105 and the 605. He's getting in his car, depending on the time of day. He's going to drive to Marina Del Rey. He's going to get on his boat and then drive to the cove or somewhere off of Palos Verdes to tow you back in. So a lot can change with that person. So as an emergency tow, we can all say, well, not necessarily at this exact moment, but what we're going to try to do is go out there and be proactive, and we're going to tow them in and make sure that's not a call. We also do a lot of tows. People will say, hey, my boat just broke down. I'm in, right near the yacht club, and can I go over to the hoist? We have some newer members in the harbor right now, and what we'll do is we'll take that as a training opportunity. And, they could call Towboat US and do that, but again, it's a time maybe in the morning, there's not a lot of wind, it's a smaller boat. This is a newer member of the Harbor Patrol. Let's take this time and do a tow where it's not an emergency, there's no stress, we're not under any time critical situation, and take this advantage of this opportunity that we have, and we'll tow them, and we'll do it that way. And so we can get a handful of those types of calls under our belt, so when we do have that critical call, it's not their first time. So, yes, so that's, any other questions?
No. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful presentation. Great work. Yeah. Oh.
So we want to increase our service to the community, and there's a few things we're working on. We want to bring our dive team back. That's just marine rescue diving, also called underwater search and rescue. The primary benefit of that would be life safety, but we could also use the dive team for salvage and recovery operations. That's where we could lift a boat, like a boat that's sunk. We can raise the boat, and that limits property loss, environmental damage as well. We're looking to get a new piece of equipment on our boat. It's called a FLIR, forward-looking infrared camera, and that improves our marine search and rescue at night and when the weather's bad. Like on Saturday night when we couldn't see 10 feet in front of the boat, that gives you, it's pretty cool camera. If you look on YouTube, it will zoom in, depending on how much money you spend on it, it'll zoom in 3 miles and you can see clearly what you're looking at through fog in the dark. And it works by detecting heat signatures from a boat or a person in the water.
You can find people in the water.
You can find people in the water or a boat, and it shows the object clearly too. It's pretty amazing. We're working on establishing a more formal and organized process for scheduled dock inspections. We want to work directly with the marina staff, walk the docks to enforce all the different rules, and our goal is to keep the walkways on the docks and the waterways clear and clean. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Can I ask you a question? So on your future plans, so the dive team we used to have, correct?
That's right.
And that eroded somehow?
It did.
And you want to bring it back?
We do.
Is it budgeted? Is it?
Our fire chief has told us that he wants it back, and we're working on getting it back. I don't know where the money's coming from, but we're going to get it.
Okay. And when I was rereading Chief Kaufman's report, it highlighted that there needs to be investment in the Harbor Patrol boats. Has that been remedied, or?
We have a unique opportunity. LA County lifeguards own the mold to their Baywatch boats, and they bought them from Seaway. Back when Long Beach used to have a shop, when it closed down, they bought the mold. That is one of the best, or probably the best, marine rescue boat you could have. And they own the mold, and we're the only agency they've offered to let us use their mold to build our own boat with. So they're finding the new builder. And once they get that builder, they're going to spec it out, build 3 of their own boats, and they said we could build the 4th one off that. And I mean, they used one of their best boats they had it molded by a NASA engineer, and they can get 10 boats made out of a mold. It costed them millions of dollars to have the mold made, and they're going to let us use it for free. So
Is that in the CIP?
The CIP?
Capital Improvement Plan? Or?
Vehicle replacement.
I'm sorry?
Vehicle replacement fund.
Ah,
I mean,
so it's in there, it's funded?
It is not completely funded because the cost has gone up exponentially since the last one we purchased. But we've determined a path forward to fund it, but again, our time lag from getting there is not this fiscal year.
Would
The
that,
delivery time is approximately 48 months to 5 years to
right.
replace.
So which boat are you replacing a boat or are you adding a boat?
We would add a boat into frontline service and retain this current boat in backup service. The current boat you see on the video.
Which one would it mainly, I mean, are you going to put fire equipment on it like the one, or it's going to have a nozzle on it? And
Yeah, it'll have firefighting capacity.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and also that boat, Baywatch has some of their boats in service. They've been in 40 years, and they have not even an expiration date on them yet. They're just solid built boats. So, I mean, it'd be a great investment for the city too. It'd outlast all of us here.
Yeah, I think well-built boats, if you take care of them, will last forever. It just sounded like in Chief Kaufman's report, they weren't necessarily doing the maintenance.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. And
Well, if you think they're fine now, that's all I'm asking.
yeah, our boat's old, but it's still in great. We got brand new engines, and it's running great. We're happy with the Crystal
And
liner.
you're getting that one pump fixed, or?
And getting the pump fixed. That's definitely on the
Okay,
priority.
I was just rereading the report and it said that, and I just wanted to see if that's something we should be concerned about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Very well done.
I think we have one last slide. I'll be quick. The boat has been spec'd out. The delivery time's extended. We have about a 20-year life on our boats, projected life on it, but that project has been projected and Chad Smith's been a lead in that project, so it's definitely something we're looking at. So to close out, I want to touch on a really important part, which you won't see in the day-to-day operations of the Harbor Patrol, and that's our collaboration as a regional partner. So they're touching a ton of other agencies that you may not see on a day-to-day basis. The first and most important is probably the marina managers, and working in a collaborative relationship with the marina managers in their areas of problem and making sure they're having a regular conversation with them, which I know all three of our members here are regularly talking to all three of them with the issues that come up. Specifically like the dock inspection program, that's something that's been a real issue for Basin 3. We did go through and do some dock inspections in Basin 3. All the members were noticed before we did that, and then working collaboratively to help the harbor run as efficiently and as effectively as we can make it. So that's probably the most important regional partner. But we play a critical role in the whole LA area in terms of providing service in the marine environment. And the big one is that Land, Sea, Air Disaster Response Plan, which is for LAX primarily, but we play a critical role for the Torrance Airport because the flight path is directly over the harbor and our resources would be first on scene. So we play a critical role in any sort of response for light aircraft that might fail immediately after launch. So we update that annually, do training with all the regional partners. And if we did have a larger aircraft go down off of LAX, we'd be a part of that response in addition to Coast Guard, LA County, LA City, all those other regional partners. Search and Rescue Council. So once a year, all the regional partners, including our Harbor Patrol, LA County Lifeguards, LA Sheriffs, LAPD, Coast Guard, all get together and talk about how we're going to rescue people in the most efficient and effective way possible. We're very fortunate this year, Mark Hansen and King Harbor Yacht Club has volunteered to host that meeting here at Redondo Beach. It's a very exciting opportunity for us. So on November 8th, we're going to have 30 plus major players in the LA area here and us playing a lead role in kind of bringing our partners together and talking about how we're going to rescue missing boaters and missing swimmers in a coordinated fashion. Very exciting, something they do that you're not going to see every day. We work with the Coast Guard very closely. This last year, we actually developed training delivered to 10,000 firefighters across the region that talked about water rescue from a larger perspective than just showing it. If you show up on a fire engine, how are you going to effect a water rescue? And if you have a missing swimmer, how are you going to do that? Our partners with the Coast Guard and also other regional cities like Manhattan Beach gave a great presentation. It was a digital delivery to 10,000 firefighters across the region. So we work very closely with the Coast Guard. Homeland Security, we're a small port of entry, so the Homeland Security started to pay more and more attention to small portals of entry. Obviously, the Port of LA gets a lot of security, a lot of funding, and a lot of resources to monitor things coming and going, but smaller port of entries are starting to garner more interest. And you all know we do get pongas up on the beach, whether it's Rat Beach, PV, and we are usually the first responders that arrive on scene for a ponga that ends up with either illegal drugs or illegal people. Fish and Game, my partner Chad spoke about our operations with them, Jake spoke about that at great length. Interesting enough, we have the most active Fish and Game wildlife enforcement in LA County. The boat running out of Redondo is our most active area. So they're getting a lot of use out of that resource. Last and but not least, to close out an extensive presentation, but the Marine Enforcement Unit. PD's had significant turnover in the last couple of years with their vessel, but if we do have illegal activity, our operators facilitate those officers getting out waterboard if need be, and facilitating that strong arm enforcement that is the primary function of our police department. But due to their turnover, we're now fulfilling that role when they don't have operators on duty.
Where do you draw the line between what one of our Harbor Patrol officers or boat captains can enforce versus law enforcement? And can they issue citations for not having a boater certificate? And
they can. For hard enforcement, like they said, our proactive approach in our enforcement of issues.
I understand the proactive approach.
But that mitigates 99%. For hard enforcement, we do have to get our police department involved for the citations.
What? Hard enforcement?
For hard enforcement, for people that say no and aren't going to comply with what we're directing them to do, we'll lean on the police department for that assistance.
But can they issue citations for not having
PFD on?
PFDs, or if their registration's out or they don't have the boater certification?
We don't. I've never.
But could you?
No.
You don't have the authority?
Right now, I don't even have the capacity. Like my chief was saying, if somebody didn't want to comply with swimming or say, hey, you don't have life jackets, we would, at that time, call the PD. They would come down, we would put them on our boat, and we would go out and they would do more of the enforcement in terms of that.
Because I was reading up on some other harbor patrols where they can't respond, if you have to detain someone or if they don't have weapons, right? They don't have firearms, but they do issue citations like the PFD or the out of registration or the boater, now the boater certificates, and they will tell them to go back to port.
If
Back to
people
the
don't have the proper like life jackets or what's have you, there's like a hard line in the sand. If somebody's registration is just expired and they're going out for a day sail, we're not gonna send them back in, quite honestly. But if somebody's going out with kids on the boat and they don't have life jackets, they're done. We're sending them back in. A lot of times, people are on stand-up paddle boards. I always kind of take the stance, like, we don't know what their day is looking like, if they're having a good day. Is this their one day of a week that they could have with their kids or what have you? So we carry extra life jackets on our boat. So if somebody's out there on their stand-up board, they don't have life jackets and they're out there with their kids, we just hand it to them. We have a bunch of them at our station. We get about 95% of them back. We just say, hey, when you're done for the day, just swing by and put it on our doorstep or on our dock. And we get almost all of them back. But so that point is we're trying to, again, like I said earlier.
I understand. I just, it sounds like we have no line. It's just, you don't issue citations.
We don't issue citations.
And that's by,
Yes, the police
sounds like
officers.
by choice, but
So to answer your question about boating under the influence, we would require a police department to enforce that. And that's a specialty unit for them. Like, no, not any law officer can do that. They have a specialty officer that does enforce that. So if we suspected it.
okay, thanks.
At that point, this concludes.
I did have, and maybe going back to someone, but under the future, one thing I didn't see in the future is, we're getting a boat ramp. I mean, we just got approved the RFP to design the boat ramp. Do you have any plans for how to adapt to a boat ramp being here? I mean, that wasn't on the future slide. And that seems like the big elephant in the room that's coming down.
So as part of key players on the harbor amenities plan when it was developed, seeing that boat ramp in the future and anticipating that, some of our officers have reached out to Marina Del Rey that does have a very active boat ramp and talked to the sheriff officers that respond to that and kind of started the process of ramping up of what key enforcement issues are and then what key safety patrols are for that. So we're looking to follow their lead in what they do at their facility, which has significantly more vessels stationed in it and operating out of on a day-to-day basis. So that is something we're looking at with the development of the harbor amenities plan, and obviously we want to be well prepared and staffed to support that mission.
One, I think we would have to have regulations written, right?
Correct.
Which we don't have any regulations right now.
Correct.
I couldn't find one even for the current boat hoist.
It would be a new setting for us because we've never had a boat ramp, which is a very exciting part of our harbor amenities development. But we would partner as part of that Title 12 for the King Harbor specific rules. So something that they're already doing in a larger area within LA County.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask you a question with regards to, so this came up a few years back. You talked about spills, which I presume is really somebody spilling something directly into the harbor or offshore, something leaking and whatnot. We had an incident some years back with sewer issues, backups. Public Works knows about it. It's headed in the storm drains. It's headed towards the harbor. What mechanism do we have? Because the conversation came up before. We know that Public Works has a great policy procedure for notifying the regional water quality control boards, all their required things that they've got to notify with regards to sewer spills. And I had asked the question back then, but I'm not sure it ever really got answered as to how do we disseminate that information? Do we to the harbor patrol, and how do they get it to the people who are using the water, either paddle boarding or whatever they're doing?
So I can speak to two components to the question you just asked. The first is there's a longer term solution which is underway with Public Works. It's a multi-year project to develop 2 large cisterns which are going to be installed starting, I think, early this winter. One just west of the Chart House entrance property, not by the former Sea Lab. Adjacent to that, there'll be a large tank there where stormwater or possible sewage flows would be diverted to that. And there's another cistern being added just east of the Seaside Lagoon property, which will hold tens of thousands of gallons, which is what other parts of the city do to control sewage spills. The notification that goes out to them based on the quantity of the sewage is spilled, they'll start isolating an area and excluding human contact from that area, and then following up with keeping people out of it, patrolling the area, keeping people out of it, depending on the quantity of sewage that is spilled, and then notifying the relevant agencies, including Regional Water Quality Board, Department of Fish and Game, LA County Health with that sewage spill, and then isolating that area until they get some good testing to confirm the pollutants that could be in
So
our
you
harbor.
guys are on Public Works call list, is basically what it comes down to. And you guys are basically the ones who then are making sure the public is staying clear of the contaminated water.
That didn't happen in that spill.
Well, that's one reason why I brought up the question,
Yeah.
because
No, I remember the
previously,
incident.
when we talked about it, I didn't get the same response that I'm getting now. So, good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to sit down. We're at the question and answer format, so you can ask anybody you feel is going to give you the best answer to your inquiries.
Do you want to hear from the public, just to let them go home, or?
Yeah, let's hear from the public so everybody can go home.
Absolutely. Let's open up for public comment right now. I'm not sure I recognize this person.
State your name, please.
Mark Hansen, King Harbor boater for, I guess, 63 of my 69 years now. Proudly served on the Harbor Public Amenities Working Group. I want to, before I get into nuts and bolts, I want to just touch on something administrative. Obviously, this is a phenomenal report. And, you know, I've got a pencil note to myself to talk to the chief and the guys if we maybe could do this for the boating community at large, because I think there's just huge value in this. I have been very close to the Harbor Patrol officers for decades. They're just great guys, and they work so closely and warmly with our boating community. But I've got to be candid. This wonderful presentation is absolutely not what was referred to the Harbor Commission by the City Council on September 5th. What was on that was item H15 in the consent calendar that talked about renaming the Harbor Patrol and expanding their duties to become a paramedic squad, which the way we read it sounded like it could be asked to respond to the entire city. That was very concerning to us boaters, and two harbor commissioners, Commissioner Carlson and Commissioner Light, wrote very well extensive letters of concern. I wrote a letter of concern, and the city manager acknowledged those concerns and pulled the item from the calendar to refer to the Harbor Commission. So as much as this is a wonderful presentation, I'd like to see it go to the public. It's not what was referred to you guys. And so now I think you guys have a lot more work to do this evening, because I think you need to engage the guys while they're here and talk about what was really referred to you. Anyway, let's get into the nuts and bolts here. And one of the issues, of course, is the renaming, okay? And I talked about this issue with Keith Kaufman for about part of an hour and a half, wonderful meeting we had. The proposal was to change the term deputy harbor master / boat captain to fire rescue boat operator. Everybody I've talked to immediately says the same thing. Wow, that's quite a downgrade. You're going from being a boat captain to a boat operator. And they're losing the term deputy harbor master, which I always felt was their outreach part of them, which they do an absolutely wonderful job of. I absolutely understand there, and Kaufman and I talked about this a lot. Captain means two different things. There's captain as a rank and a pay scale, and there's captain as who's in charge of a boat. And I think I'm going to need to ask you for a minute or
Motion to
two.
extend.
Second.
The
Minute? Should we give them a minute?
Just
Whatever.
forever.
I think we should be able to be intellectual enough to understand the word captain can be used two ways, okay? And on a boat, you absolutely, positively have to have somebody ultimately in charge, even if they have the exact same seniority in the pay scale. Flip a coin if you have to, but somebody's got to make the final decision when it's time critical. So I really think we need to maintain that term boat captain, and I'd like to keep the term deputy harbor master, because they do a lot of that. They just don't mechanically work. I can call them from any kind of public outreach, and they'll be there. They do a good job at that part. Less of an issue perhaps on the other position, going from harbor patrol officer to fire rescue boat specialist. But one of the things people have said to me is, doesn't matter what the city tries to call them, we're going to call them harbor patrol. That's not going to change. They're our harbor patrol buddies. I think I'll end the captain part there. Next thing I want to touch on is it talked about the paramedic unit responding to calls for services directed by the fire chief. That stroked terror in a lot of our hearts because we already are having days when Harbor Patrol's not there because they've called inland. Now, my understanding is they do a great job of coordinating with Baywatch, and they'll tell them, hey, we were thinking about going inland. You're going to be here for a moment. And they say, yeah, we got you covered. So I think we do okay right now. But I can tell you, boaters are concerned because, they see the guys coming back in a red truck and go, well, why was our Harbor Patrol not here at the harbor? And so people are really concerned about, anything that might take them further away. A big issue is this hospital thing, and maybe the chief and others can address this. My understanding today is that the standard is that if our Harbor Patrol officers respond to something, they're calling the paramedic guys at the same time, and those guys come over, take them to the hospital, and then our guys can continue, paying attention to the harbor. The concern is that if they become a full paramedic unit, okay, would...
Yeah, another motion to extend.
Motion to extend for,
Thank you so much. Almost done. If they became a full paramedic unit, the big concern is, are they now, because this is my understanding, but I'm a layman, so they can tell us what the truth is. But my understanding is a full paramedic unit would potentially now take the patient to the hospital, which could be the two local ones, or if it's a trauma, all the way out to Harbor UCLA. So 45 minutes, hour and a half, our harbor's not going to be being watched. So these are details, that the experts can fill in. I think important to come back. One of the Harbor Patrol officers mentioned it, Kaufman mentioned it, our harbor's kind of unique. You leave our harbor and lots of people make an immediate right turn and go along the breakwater, go south down the beach cities and down to Marina del Rey. They shouldn't, but it's what they do. And when they break, they're in those rocks in a matter of seconds or minutes. And Roger Carlson gave some great examples that he sent to you all. This seems to happen more often than not. It seems like we have these boats on the rocks just super fast. So these people are going to be hurt or dead. About 30 seconds and I'm done.
All right, one more motion to extend?
sure.
Second.
All righty, thanks so much. Anyway, it's just super common that we need the guys there right now. So anyway, as I sign off, I would encourage you to check with the fire chief and get some answers on what does he think now that he's gotten some input, okay, about the captain issue. Maybe he can give us some thoughts on, the area of coverage, and of course this hospital issue. Hey, thanks so much for your patience.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Mon. Thank you for
Thanks.
that comment.
Hi, I'm Monica Sieverts, and this is my daughter, Molly Sievert. It's actually her 15th birthday today.
Oh,
So she's here. Well, we're all here, but she's here because the harbor is so important to us, and our Harbor Patrol has been so important to us for many years. I've been here since 1996. I've been a live aboard. The kids have been born on the boat, and so we're very involved with the harbor. We always come out and say hi to them, and if we have a problem or whatever, they're always right there for us, and have always been just so important to our family and the kids. Molly here drives a 24 skiff and can drive better than many people, and
Who are you pointing at?
No, but she, our kids have grown up and they know the harbor, and the harbor's been it's our life, it's our vitality. And Carson, our little 9-year-old, has Down syndrome, and on occasion we've lost him and actually have had to call the Harbor Patrol and we're like, oh, we lost him, and they're right there, whatever we need, and he's always found, but they're always, I don't know what else to say, but they're always good. They're always, right there for us. And we would hate to lose them in any way. And paying them more is a great idea. And getting more of them, even better. And, their skills have been always, used. Like, I mean, we've had kids that, I remember when Hanson stepped on glass and they came over and they're like, oh yeah, you should probably take him into the hospital and stuff. They're always just, good to have, the harbor is a park and it's a unique thing on the water and have somebody right there, right then, because on the water, when you have an accident, it could go from bad to worse so quickly, and it's nice to have them right there. Especially when we're right down from them and we see these people coming down when the wind's blowing and we're like, oh my gosh, and they're always be right there if we need them right away. And we get, our boat gets hit, even today we got hit. And we just, kind of laugh about it and go, okay, you're fine, because our boat's still there. But, these guys have been spectacular for us. So whatever else, I don't know what else you guys need, but we appreciate them very much. And all these girls are always out in the harbor, and that's where they live, and not live, but where they, do their lives.
Recreate.
Appreciate these guys always there, making sure they're still alive.
And we always feel safe around them and always there to have an eye on us.
Yeah. They're like a bunch of dads, and we know that they got these girls.
That's good.
All right, but thank you.
Thank you so
and
much.
Happy
and
birthday.
Happy birthday. Yes, and thank you for taking the time. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, are there any comments, e-comments or?
We do not have any e-comments.
Don't you have a green card there?
Oh, no, this was, that was from Brent and Daniela.
Oh,
Who
okay.
already spoke.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, at this point, to continuing discussion, did you want to?
I can chime in for a second
Yeah.
here. So it was a great presentation by our fire department. I want to kind of go over why we're here, how we ended up here. To Mark Hansen's point, yes, there was an item that was supposed to go to City Council on September 5th. That was essentially a memorandum of understanding between our Firefighters Association employee group and the City of Redondo Beach. When we say City of Redondo Beach, what that usually means is human resources, a contract attorney that represents City Council in negotiations. The negotiation process resulted in specific changes to their contract. That's what was on consent, and that's what was being considered by council that night. Mark also correctly stated that there were a few letters of submission questioning potential degradation of kind of job responsibilities of our harbor patrol over time. So the city manager kind of flagged the issue. The city council did not refer this item to the harbor commission. Instead, the city manager requested that they pull the item, and they acquiesced to his request and pulled it and said, yeah, bring it back another day. And the city manager directed us to do two things to you tonight. And that is to go over from the horse's mouth exactly what they do out there. All right. And then you can ask the chief about what was in. He could maybe provide a summary of that memorandum of understanding. And that way you can compare the two and see, is there truly a degradation of services with this MOU? And if you think that there is as a group, potentially you could write a letter on behalf of the Harbor Commission in front of that item. Or if it's not as a group and one or two of you individually still feel like there's a degradation, you could write a letter on your behalf as a citizen. So that's kind of the purpose, is to show you what they do and what they don't do out there, be as truthful as possible, allow the chief to talk maybe in summary of what was in the MOU, and then you guys can kind of make a discussion and a call as a group. If that makes any sense at all.
Yes.
I have
Okay.
a question. And we don't have a copy of the old MOU or the,
No, because MOUs are not under the purview of the Harbor Commission. They're just not.
so for understanding if there's been degradation, as you just said, it's
Is
just,
taking a look at their presentation tonight, getting a summary from the chief of what is in that memorandum amendment that was supposed to go on September 5th, and drawing your own conclusions on whether you think there truly is a degradation.
it's a tall order.
It is, it's a tall order, not having the baseline.
Right.
From-
And you
from
could
what?
receive and file. You don't have to take any action. There's this is really a report for your own edification. It's great that Councilman Abelman, this is his first one. He gets this kind of big, long tutorial on what they do and don't do. I think it's great. But if you truly do feel that there's a degradation, while you're not a recommending body for the MOU, you can certainly write a letter expressing your points.
So here's my concerns. I don't know how many of you read this, what they call it, side letter agreement. But it basically is saying, we're not going to have a boat captain. We're not going to have a deputy harbor master anymore. That's going to be called a fire rescue boat operator. And we're not going to have harbor patrol officer. That's going to be called a fire rescue boat specialist. And the MOU says that when this happens, those positions shall become special assignments for existing firefighter, paramedic, or fire engineer classifications. So that says that, to me, I mean, if you take that verbatim, the only place we can bring in new harbor patrol in the future is through the existing fire department. People who are already part of the department. You can't go out and look for people who have a zillion years of boating experience. And
The way I interpret it is, once those people phase out, they're gone.
those specific positions, but the new ones become special assignments. So they're basically regular rank and file fire department people, and they have a special assignment to the harbor. And I think we heard tonight, this is such a unique job. How can you say that it's just a special assignment versus a whole different job category?
Well, mine goes all the way back to they need a captain's license through the United States Coast Guard.
Yeah.
I had one, I worked it, and I'm sorry, they are being paid, they need one. That's a real gray area, that they don't need one because they're employed by the city. Once you receive compensation, you need a captain's license. So I'm still stuck on that.
Yeah.
I think the nuance there was that they're using it in an emergency, not that they're.
Everything is not an emergency.
Yep. The other things that are red flag to me, having done these kind of things for both in the military and in industry, is this is very open-ended. And it scares me because it says the minimum qualification screening and selection project. Well, first off, in order to serve, you have to be, in either of the things, you have to be an existing firefighter, paramedic, or fire engineer and pass minimum qualification screening and selection as designated by the fire chief. And I'm used to having, these are the specifications and the qualifications. Here's the must-haves. Here's the nice-to-haves. Here's what you will have to get in the first 2 years. And in fact, in 1993, they have a document that has that for both of the current positions. And I have not seen it. I searched the site, and there's nothing like that. And then secondly, it says that they have expanded emergency medical duties, including staffing a paramedic squad, which is what Mark was getting at. No longer are they a rescue squad or a harbor patrol. They're a paramedic squad to report to calls for service as directed by the fire chief. It doesn't say, in the harbor, uplands and tidelands. It just says it's open-ended. So that doesn't make me feel comfortable. And then the third thing, which may be the whole crux of why this is going on, is it then says that the boat operators, who I believe are, and correct me if I'm wrong, are all acting, right? The current boat captains are all acting. They get a 5% special assignment pay above what the
Fire department, yeah.
Yeah, 5% for all that responsibility. And what it doesn't, and when I add that up, I have the MOU, the current MOU that has 2023 rates for the harbor, the deputy harbor master / boat captain. Even with the 5%, it's thousands of dollars below what the boat captains that just retired got. And they're basically doing the same job. And I don't know how you have esprit de corps when you're throwing that in somebody's face. And I don't want to call these guys up and ask them because their bosses are here. And
You can ask them.
yeah, but are they going to be honest? And
I'm a straight shooter, and I want you guys to know that, and I think I've come across. So, and to Greg's point, I don't negotiate MOUs. That's not my role. And any indication that I'm shirking my responsibility or this is the space shuttle point, so that's not the case, because I stand before you here to answer all these questions. And there's only certain things that I have any purview over.
Yeah.
And other than that, they're just interesting facts to me that I don't have control over. But what I will tell you is that these Harbor Patrol officers here, these guys that work at Fire Station 3, they're like a Swiss Army knife. They're like the best at everything they do. And the job today was to present you their skills. There's currently a citywide assessment being conducted of the department, and there's going to be an assessment of your harbor, which maybe at a later time you can direct. Maybe we're getting.
You guys gotta go.
There is currently an assessment that the city's undergoing of the entire department. And these might be good questions that we could pose to the consultants that the city hired from Citygate. And this would be a great, like that would be one really good positive referral. Say, hey, we want Citygate to look at this, and then they could take it up to the council, and then they could expand the scope of work of Citygate, which is a third-party consultant that the city hired.
Chief, I'm not shooting at you, I'm shooting at the memo that just says it's up to your purview, but it's not written down. What are those selection criteria and what is the area so what is the area you view that they respond to?
So normally what I say is they don't go past Harbor Boulevard or Harbor Drive. That's
And how far north and south?
North and south would be to the
Yacht Club Way?
boundaries of whatever that frontage would be. One of the reasons is Fire Station 1 can get there pretty quick. So there's certain areas where we're going to beat them anyhow.
Yeah, the pier you can get to quicker from.
But I'll give you as an example, a month ago, these individuals saved a 45-year-old bicyclist who had a heart attack on Harbor Drive. And the model worked just like we talked about. They got on scene, they initiated life-saving care, a second squad came, took the patient, saved the patient. The patient was speaking at the hospital by the time they got there, and then our harbor folks went right back to Fire Station 3.
So if you were to expand that area, and say, you guys take the call, what's that area?
Their area is to harbor right now.
No. But if you say, where do you draw the line when you're saying, let's get the Harbor Patrol to take this landside
Well, this is
call?
how I would look at it. Let's just say, I'll give you an example. There's a young kid at Redondo Union who's in some type of dire emergency and everything else is gone. Every other resource is used up. I can actually tell you by fact, they'll probably be fighting over the call. So there might be a scenario where if we need to save someone's life and there's no one else around, that's what we have to do.
Okay, and how often do they go away from the harbor?
They're not, I mean, you can ask them directly. How often do you guys away from the harbor?
We'll come up to Station 1 to check in. It's called the mail run. We drop off some paperwork that needs to be handed in. We'll pick up some paperwork, some different reports or things like that the chiefs want to get to us. And we come up for CE or continuing education. We need 48 hours of continuing education every 2 years as a paramedic, and we'll do that at Station 1. And those are things that every time we leave, even tonight, every time we leave the station, even if we're going outside the harbor for something, we let Baywatch know. So if we're coming up and there's high surf, well, I'll call the chiefs and just say, hey.
But then you take the ambulances all the way to the hospital.
We don't do that. So.
Well, you just gave me an example where you did, so.
The one earlier.
Yeah.
And again, that's
That's rare, extremely rare.
Yeah.
I can tell you another call that happened. Do you remember the one here at St. James where the traffic accident happened?
Yeah.
We were in the station when that call came in. We self-dispatched to that
Well,
call.
yeah.
Just like Chief
And I
said,
know heartburn with self-dispatch because you can make the you know what's going on in the
we
harbor.
want to be involved. We want to save lives. That's
I
our
just
goal.
don't want July 4th, you're like, you got to respond to
No,
this thing.
as a matter of fact, we had a great discussion about on July 4th. That might be a day that they don't do any landside work. In fact, we had a great meeting about that hey, because I used to work on the sheriff's boat, Marine Del Rey. And on certain days, they curtail certain activity to focus just on water operations. So I told them, like, hey, if it's opening day of summer, we're gonna have thousands of boaters, that's a day that we're gonna just stay in the harbor.
Okay.
And
When they respond landside, do they charge to the fire department then versus the uplands or the tidelands?
We stay to the MOU area. So that's probably a finance question, but also I know that I'm very conscientious to make sure that we don't have transfer of funds like they would do it, when I oversaw LAX and the Port of Los Angeles, they were very specific that these resources cannot be used outside of this because this is the fund they're with. So I'm not sure we can look at, but for the most part, I think keeping them to Harbor Drive kind of keeps us out of that area.
And why are we taking away from, and maybe this is beyond your purview,
Yeah.
why are we changing their name to something that's more fire department than harbor?
It's just mostly geared around the fact that we do a lot of emergency fire rescue. And so a lot of their call loads, paramedics, or they use their paramedic skills if there's a fire issue. So it was a name change just to reflect kind of more to the public what they do. But for right now, the main...
I think the public knows them as Harbor Patrol.
Yeah.
Why would we confuse the issue with saying they're a special assignment?
Yeah, well, yeah, those are just some of the terminologies we're using, but that letter...
Is that you?
Yeah, I mean, who was the creator of those?
So I came up with the initial concept of let's codify what they're doing. Let's codify what they're doing. Prior to me being appointed, they were already doing everything that they just told you they do. And my goal was, hey, let's get this thing locked in. You guys are paramedics. Let's make sure that that's reflected in your job. So one of the comments I made is their job didn't change the day before I got here or the day after I got here. They'd been doing the same thing, but I wanted to make sure, taking an interest in it to kind of codify, hey, let's make sure this is all written to your point. Let's make sure that this is written. This is not some laissez-faire, hey, we're going to implement something without any written policy. And so that's kind of my goal. And taking from your point, moving forward, I think it's really important for us to have a written documentation, guidelines, specificity, and all
But
that.
it doesn't have to go all on your name badge.
Oh, okay.
Like up here, all of us have a subset. To be up here, we have to have one of certain things in our bag of tricks before we get appointed up here. Well, being a paramedic could be one of their bag of tricks. It doesn't have to be on their nameplate, as well as boat driver and captain and, I mean, you'd have a name badge this big for
We
each
could
person.
definitely simplify that.
Yeah, I mean, would you have heartburn with like Harbor Patrol Captain and?
I wouldn't, I think one of the things that these gentlemen behind you will tell you is that I give them a lot of latitude and permission to like, what should we be doing? How can we enhance our service? So I would be more of a boots, bottom driven. We could have them say, hey, what would you think would be a good name that represents what you do? So, and that's kind of how this whole thing started.
Okay. And maybe putting you on the spot, but how do you feel about this pay thing?
Well, I used to be a union president, so that's probably, you're already gonna know what answer I'm gonna give you. I think that pay is really important based on your skills and qualifications. So if you're asking me, should you get paid more? I think you should.
Well, but I'm asking, do you think it's kind of a ripoff that they've been getting 5% additional pay because they're acting?
Yeah, that's.
When the outgoing guy made 2,000 more a month, and now you're making that a permanent change, that's all they're gonna get.
That's beyond my pay grade.
Do you think that is a morale booster or a buster?
I think we would wanna see how the morale is in the station, so.
I think that's a political answer. I think anybody.
I'm not a.
If I got put into a VP position in my company and the guy before me got this much and it's established and written that they get that much, and the next one goes, well, now you're an assistant VP, even though you're doing the same job and you only get 5% more, that would be a morale hit to me.
I'm all for more money.
Okay.
So.
I'm not, I can tell where this is going. Do you have written quals for the positions?
Chief May, do you have them?
Yeah, the positions themselves have job qualifications under the city's human resources. If you look at the job specifications, they don't reflect the titles we're talking about right now, but if you look under human resources job specifications, it will have boat captain.
I looked there, I could only find 1993.
I can send those over to you.
Okay. And it says you are responsible, it has no details other than you are responsible for the selection process and the qualification screening.
Yes, sir.
But you don't know if they have written qualifications.
We do. But the language in that side letter is, it'll be under the purview of the chief. And of course, they'll be process, transparent. You have to make sure you protect employee rights, all those things. I just don't wave a wand.
Well, I know
and
we
make
say
someone do
process
something.
transparency, but then when somebody like me actually goes to research it, it doesn't come up.
But we will get you a copy of that.
So, but it should be easy for the public to find.
Oh, we'll
I could find the 1993 ones.
We'll put
like
one
that.
online on our new website.
Okay, thanks. So that was what the letters were in response to, and why this is here today, is that memo. And I've gone through the salient points, but there's more. It just seems like we're calling them an additional duty to being a fire guy. And that's not, in my perspective, what Harbor Patrol is. Harbor Patrol is a different job, and they happen to do some fire
Jim,
department duties.
When they made Harbor Patrol and the fire and the lifeguards firemen, that's what happened. And that
Yeah,
happened.
but you don't call lifeguard
A fireman?
a specialist, you call them a lifeguard. And there's lifeguard captains and there's lifeguard.
But they're still firemen.
Yeah, but it's not their title.
But see, I think we're all
The
getting
name
lost in the
change.
weeds with these titles.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think the titles need to be streamlined so that they're direct, with a list that's attached somewhere of what their qualifications are.
Is this even in the purview of the Harbor Commission?
Yeah.
It's really not. It's
Yeah.
all the, like the pay was all negotiated between the association and HR. I mean, it's.
I think we're
can have
lost
an
in the
opinion
weeds.
on it.
You can absolutely
have an
have
opinion on it,
You can have an opinion on it.
We don't get to rule on it, but we can
doesn't-
send a letter to the,
Individually, I
No,
think,
we
not
can't
as
as a
Harbor
commission.
Commission.
If you agree as a commission, it can come from the commission. If not,
But I don't see
individuals
us
can submit
agreeing on
letters.
anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
well, I don't know, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, well, my opinion is it's a negotiated item between the Fire Association and Human Resources, and they agree on compensation, qualifications, and titles. And I know, generally speaking, you can't do title changes unless both sides kind of come to some kind of consensus and agreement on it. It's a negotiated thing, and it's not something that I feel falls under the purview of the Harbor Commission.
I totally agree.
What I do as well.
Yeah, I don't think the Harbor Commission is going to come to a consensus of anything to send. As an individual, I think that we should, whatever our feelings are, send in. But it was a wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it, and thank you for
I just
taking the
want to ask
time.
Vicki, are you okay with them getting locked in at just 5%?
I'm not going to get involved in their pay. That's not something I need to be involved in. That's something that the unions and HR
Are you guys
takes care of.
represented on the union? Do you have any representation on the union right now?
Of course they do.
I'll be 100% honest. No, we're not represented on our union board.
I'm
He was
putting you
the
on the
union
spot and you can
president.
say I decline to respond.
I won't just
But do you
decline.
think this is fair?
Well, you're a member of the fire department, correct?
We are.
And you're represented by,
We are represented, but Smith, Chad Smith was a union, was vice president and was quite honestly, ran out. We're not represented by our union. We're just not. The Harbor.
the specific
we're seen
Harbor
as kind of
Patrol.
quite honestly, in our union, now I'm not saying fire administration, but by our union, we're kind of seen as the redheaded stepchild, I'll say it, and I don't mind saying it. I haven't, it's frustrating because we do so much and our jobs are just different. We have our Coast Guard license. We've taken rescue boat operations, boating under the influence, marine firefighting, all the different classes you can
Each
take.
one of you
So-
have a captain's license through the United States Coast Guard?
All three of the boat captains do.
it's not a
Everybody
requirement.
today, everybody on the boat today, me and Chad both have, so there's three of us who are boat captains, acting boat captains, and we all have them. We all went out and got that on our own. And so we have done all of these things. We continue to take classes. We have towing endorsements. We've done all of that. 100% on our own. And we've taken all this different classes that you could possibly take to improve our skills for this community on our own.
Do you like these titles?
I wish we had quite honestly, I don't understand. I think we're trying to fix something that's not broken. And we have a boat captain's rank. It's been established. We gave up things to accomplish that. So what happened in the past, we had a sergeant. And the person, we gave up that. So, okay, there's a sergeant and a deckhand on HPO. And the HPO got a 13% bonus for being down there. What we did, this was years ago, about 10 years ago or so, maybe a little less than that, we gave up the ability to get that bonus as a Harbor Patrol officer, and we gave them pay parity with fire captains. So there's two different avenues that you can take within this fire department. You could, we all come in as firefighter paramedics. You go as an engineer, drive the fire engine, and then you could be a fire captain. That's one path, and then maybe up onto chief. The other path, guys who are interested in the water type environment, you can come in as a firefighter paramedic, and then you go to a Harbor Patrol officer, and then on to a boat captain. That's been the path. The path has worked perfectly. Quite honestly, it's worked perfectly until Chief Kaufman wanted to change it. And
you have to remember, Chief Kaufman is a police officer through and through. The nice title of fire chief temporarily shouldn't have happened. He was a policeman. He's always been a policeman. His heart is as a policeman, and he was trying to incorporate everything into one giant ball of wax. And as far as I'm concerned, it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's how we see it. We just need to get the support we just need to get the support. And it's been working wonderful up until very recently, and we're trying everything we can to keep what we've had and to expand our services. Chad and I have talked about, there's a harbor master, get your master's through Anchorage for University up in Anchorage to become a harbor master. We've talked about doing that. We want to have a dive program. This is the best harbor in Southern California. We want to make it better. And we want to continue, whatever it is that we feel that we fall short on, we will take the classes, we will improve, we'll do better, and we'll meet and exceed your expectations.
So I'm just going to make a comment that, first of all, thank you guys for doing that, because it shows your level of professionalism and commitment, because you're doing it regardless of whether they recognize it or compensate you for it. I will tell you, my experience, unfortunately, is unions, it's common amongst unions to, I'm not sure what's the right language, I'll get myself into all kinds of trouble. I'm retired, not that it matters, but they go to whatever's the largest class. Whatever's the largest class of employees, that's who they pay the most attention to, because that's the numbers they need to pass the contract. Teachers are a perfect example, former teacher. Sixth grade elementary school teachers have the same pay scale as a teacher teaching physics and calculus and AP chemistry, whatever, in high school. There's no difference. Why? When economically, supply and demand, that calculus physics teacher is a lot more, see, this is where it's going to get me in trouble because my wife's an elementary school teacher. I hope she's not watching. But they're a lot harder to find, those qualified, certified, credentialed teachers. And you just can look at what school districts are fighting over to see that. But from a contract point of view, who do you need the votes for to sign the contract? Okay, there's a lot more sixth grade elementary school teachers. And so you get that disparity. But I feel for you, believe me, because yeah, I'm a science teacher, but I recognize that's the reality of union situation. And I just don't think it's in our purview to weigh in on that.
And I respect your point of view, and I understand that point of view. Again, in the fire service, we equate busyness with calls.
Yeah.
And if you're going to say that we run, I think Kaufman's report said we run 1.7 calls or something like that of that nature a day. Well, Today, we lifted a boat that had sank. We towed a boat in that broke down the main channel. And we helped we got a swimmer that was swimming across the main channel as well. So 3 calls. Now, are those, those are legitimate calls. I mean, a call broke down in the middle of the harbor and boats sank and things like that. That's just what we did today. But we spent all day out on the boat making contacts on people's paddleboards and all this other stuff. So we're out there doing it. And so in the fire department, quite honestly, we're on the beach, not on the beach, we're in the harbor, we're on the boat, and it's just looked at as being different. And when you're different, sometimes you just don't have all the support that you need.
Yeah, I actually kind of equate it more to a police officer because you're patrolling and looking for stuff and trying to keep stuff from boiling up instead of a fire department where you're sitting there waiting for, the emergency call, right?
I thought of the same thing. It sounds like a mix of fire department, police department with the education and the patrolling part.
And they
It's
were
interesting.
police department before they went to the fire department. So that's all the work of past city managers and reorgs. My personal feel is that we have been, you can sit down, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
My personal feel is this is the slippery slope erosion from what we had. And I cited before, 1991 Harbor Patrol was its own operating unit under the harbor master, who was under a harbor director, right? And they were assigned to the Tidelands. They had 11 people, and that's not including the harbor director. 1993, they were part of, it looks like by now they were part of the, or getting into the fire department because they have a harbor patrol sergeant. So it looks like they were part of the police department, but it still said the minimum quals were Coast Guard operator's license with towing endorsement, EMT cert, scuba cert, underwater advanced diver or instructor cert. So much more specificity and requirements than, obviously we don't have that today. In 1996, the budget report bragged that the city harbor patrol had received certification from the Department of Boating and Waterways and Peace Officer Standards and Training as an official training agency in boating operations skills and boating safety enforcement. And I saw them at that time giving classes to sheriffs departments, other harbor masters, lifeguards. So we were, our harbor patrol was the experts teaching these other people how to operate boats. And that's gone. We don't do that anymore. And the city got paid for that. And in fact, there was special pay for both that and scuba diving. Those are all gone. Then we put
Can I
it
make
in.
a comment, Jim? Real quick. You were saying, I don't think we should get involved. I think maybe there is a role that we as a commission can put a letter to the city, not getting hung up on the titles maybe, but like these loosey-goosey broad terms that are concerned, and then the degradations that you're
The erosion.
noting here. Those things are the things to say, hey, we have a concern, city, that
Yeah.
where this is going.
And
Approach it from that way. I think we can probably come to an agreement on that.
just to continue, I mean, in 2001, there was a harbor master fire lieutenant, harbor master patrol sergeant, and harbor patrol officer / firefighter. So even under the fire department, until Workman came along, they had all these different special designations. And they, as I said, they got pay for being part of the dive team, and they got pay for giving that special training to the other, to statewide, to other boat operators. Then it was in 2005 that in order to help develop a pool of firefighters, fire engineers, and paramedics eligible for harbor, the fire chief will be able to designate 3 employees not assigned to the harbor to develop and maintain qualifications with qualification pay. So that's where all of a sudden it's like an additional duty as a fireman, not a special harbor operation. And then this last act to me goes the opposite way, that you're just an EMT unit that we can assign to anything, and you happen to have some additional duties as a harbor. So it's like we totally flip-flopped it from being a harbor patrolman that does some fire stuff to a fireman that happens to do.
Okay, so I'm going to call for the question because we're beating this. Yeah. Let's get down and decide what we're going to do. Are we going to write a letter as a whole?
Let me ask one question though, if I may. Greg, you said, I can't find this either, The latest strategic plan, we put a recommendation to look at reorganizing the harbor and the harbor patrol, the harbor department and harbor patrol.
Right.
That made it onto the strategic plan, correct?
It did. It was to report to city council on the different models that are out there with the different agencies and getting direction from council on whether or not they would like us to further pursue one of those models.
Are you planning to engage the harbor commission on that answer?
I mean, we can, absolutely. You know, I think we've had a good faith effort of even things that typically don't come to Harbor Commission. We kind of, like the sign text amendment is a perfect example later tonight. That's typically not something that would go before you, but because you're so involved and if it becomes effective, you would be making those sign decisions. I'm running it past you. We could do the same with that.
So to that point, I do believe we have a role when it comes to budget, staffing. But beyond that, advocating for that, those types of issues, I think we're getting out of our league to go beyond that. So to that point, with regards to reorganization, I could see the Harbor Commission having a legitimate role in at least putting their opinion on something and maybe even saying, hey, we agree with this, we don't agree with that. But I think the other aspect of all this, the boats, pardon the pun, the boat ship has sailed a little bit because so much of it's budget related, I feel, and we're going to have to wait to the next budget cycle. But I think a lot of this should come up in the next budget cycle to see how money is being allocated, because that's what's driven so much of the degradation, as you put it. And that's what's going to take to put it back to.
But also when we talk about seeing degradation, I mean, right now, these guys are doing a hell of a job, right?
Right, they're doing it anyway.
Well, they're doing a hell of a job, but they're not doing what they used to do.
On some, right, but like on the dive team, for example, which they want to bring
And they
back.
can't do everything they used to do. They went from 11 to 6.
That's right.
And
So
I don't
maybe-
understand how you staff 365, 24 hours a day with 6 people. I could never legally do that in the business I was in. I couldn't do it on space shuttle. I couldn't do it on satellite operations. That would be illegal for me to do because of crew rest requirements. I don't understand how we do that. And that in and of itself is a major degradation.
But it's a budget.
So that's a
But Greg-
budget one.
Yeah, that's a budget.
Greg, when is the plan, what's the timeline for this response to the council?
So we're planning to do that by June of 2024. That's the deadline. Not to say that that's what
And
we're actually going to do.
Did you say you engaged a company to look at it, or did somebody say that?
No, there's another assessment happening with, you
Oh,
can
okay,
speak to
okay,
that.
so that's totally
That's
separate.
just an assessment of the fire department.
Yeah. Do you need direction from council for us to be involved, or
With,
with the, recommendations regarding?
no, I can
reorgan-
just bring it to you,
Or harbor
and that way,
organization.
when I bring forward the different model types, I can say the Harbor Commission opined, and this is the one they prefer, or this is the one
Okay.
they really hate.
And I disagree that this is cooked in the fact that the council has to approve it and they pulled it. So I don't think this is cooked. They could reject it.
Correct. If the decision's not been made, it was pulled at the request of the city manager because of some of the letters received, but correct, it hasn't been approved yet.
So it's not cooked, and then we have a chance to affect it, so.
Matt,
So
isn't
let's
it
get to what we
beyond
could-
budget though? Because we're talking about kind of services. So the awesome things that this group is doing now, they all win the lottery, we get new people in, and well, now these things aren't requirements, or they're very loose. We if it's narrowed to as directed by a chief, and the chief, we have a chief at a later point that doesn't have, such a mind of being on the water, like we need to firm things up, right?
Yes.
Like, don't you think we have oversight over that kind of input? Sorry, not oversight, it's not the word. Isn't it our place to give input there that's beyond budget?
Well, but wouldn't we see failures in some way? I mean, people complaining about the fact that their boat sank and nobody helped them out or something along those lines, right? I mean, would be an extreme example, but of actual degradation of service where, I get what you're saying is right now, if you go back a number of years, there was a lot more services that was provided, right? That we had a dive team and we were actually training. That's
Degradation
right.
from 1991 to today.
And I just don't, and I get that maybe that, I don't know how those requirements are set, right? Of what all the services that we should be providing are. I don't know, what would be the mechanism for doing
I
that?
think the city,
It's a part of the negotiation between the association and city council during closed session about compensation, about job description, about requirements, and negotiated.
Well, I mean, let's call it for what it was. They moved to the fire department because they felt they could save money on staffing. So that's when they lost their clerk, because the fire department would provide admin support. Well, I don't think they really are. I mean, our number of grants, there were grants granted back in those days that we're not even going after anymore. There was grants written by the harbor master to fund our sailing program. And those grants aren't written anymore. So, I mean, you can just go through, and if you really track down the record, you can just see this slow erosion over time. And I think we're those, the frog in the hot water. Oh, it feels good, and then you're dead, right? And we're about to hit where we're putting in a boat ramp, and if we don't react now, it's going to be too late. And the boat ramp, we don't even have regulations written for the boat ramp, and who's going to write them? Well, I would want our people who are on the water to write them, but when you have 6 people going 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, it's heroics to get stuff like that done.
That's why they start contracting stuff out. But to be fair, if you can look across the department's total personnel in the city since, I'll just pick 2000 as a year, has gone down considerably. Well, I'm just saying, it's...
I agree with that, but when you look at it, I read the numbers off before. If you go by number of people per station, this is the least manned station, and they've got more than just waiting for calls on there. They don't just sit there and sleep, right?
No, I agree that the methodology
And not to say firefighters do that.
methodology used to evaluate their workload isn't appropriate. But like I said, it ultimately is going to come back to a budget. And it sounds like 2024 with the reorganization is going to be the opportunity to weigh in on what we think is the appropriate model for that function and what the appropriate staffing is for it.
Yeah, we got 12 fire captains, 12 fire engineers. This is what's authorized in the budget, 24 firefighter paramedics, and 3 firefighters compared to 6 harbor patrol. Those are split between 2 different, those aren't even the admin, the prevention guys, the special services, or the admin. And those are split between 2 fire stations. And here we have a station that's got 6 people manned 24/7.
Yeah.
And then Kaufman's report, if you read it, said, oh, they have the most overtime of the fire department. Well, no wonder. How do you take vacation when there's 6 people? And you have to, it states in the rules, you have to have 2 people on the boat. It's in the union rule. So I'm just wondering how we engage on this. Greg, do we engage when that comes up, or do we do something today? Or it sounds like it's going to be hard to get a consensus tonight, and I don't want to drag.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't get the consensus, then you absolutely, if you feel this way, can write as an individual, right? And get that forward whenever this consent item returns to city council. I do think Commissioner Kilroy brings up a great point. We're going to be able to explore this when the models come back June or before. And then around that time, the budget starts having discussions as well. So, I mean.
So do I have your word you'll engage us before that goes to the council?
Absolutely.
Is there something you guys are willing to commit to as a group?
Not tonight.
Absolutely nothing. You can't say there's a degradation, slippery slope.
Well, yeah, there is, but the problem is so far out there. June is a long ways away.
This agreement
that's
will
for his
take.
deadline, not for maybe when this is coming back to council, though.
Didn't you say?
No, that's when it would come back.
Coming back to council is June.
No, but this item's going to come back ASAP.
Right, this one item.
I thought you said.
This one item for the side letter memorandum of understanding will return relatively soon on the consent calendar
I
for city council.
misunderstood. I thought it was June.
Right. That item was the
No, I confused that. That's a
precursor to even
strategic
having this
plan.
discussion.
Okay. I'm comfortable writing my own letter.
Yeah, like I stated before, I'm not really comfortable getting involved in the specifics of this particular side level letter, but from a larger issue, from a budgeting and manpower perspective, yes. But the conversations with regards to that, unless you're going to somehow try to spring some money free at so they do the mid-year budget review. Right around now, they're starting to formulate how much money they have unspent. I'm not sure what the right terminology is.
It's like a gauge of whether our estimates were correct.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We're kind of recalibrating the budget,
I mean,
right?
I know what it is, but it's just like whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And normally that is what one-time money, so they don't want to spend it on personnel. They try to leave it just for capital projects. But I don't know, maybe if you're going to weigh in on something, like I said, it's got to be a budget issue. So maybe you sit there and try to do some one-time money. And I would love to hear somebody get a better thought on this than me. But if you want to have a one-time money push on this mid-year budget review to allocate one-time money to bring back something, special service like the dive team or something like that, that I think would be appropriate, because it's a concrete something that we could actually address and something that would be appropriate given this one-time money. But that's just off the top of my head. I don't know.
Could we as a group to just say we've seen an erosion in the qualifications and the staffing, and request the council, take a look at that at the next, midterm budget and then the reorganization of the harbor
I
department?
could get behind that.
I'd be fine with that.
Agreed.
But I don't want to get into the
I don't want to
specifics
get
of
in
the
the
side letter.
weeds.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion that we.
But I don't know that there has been an erosion of the quality. There's in documentation, certainly there has been.
Okay, well, let me, can you tell me if being a boat captain is a hard requirement for boat operator under this new title? Is that a qualification that's written down as a must-have?
The qualification for boat captain or?
To get your MMD.
Whatever, boat captain / whatever this new term is
Okay.
that I disagree with.
What's the question?
Is there a position that requires a captain and
An MMD, yeah.
Is the position description say it's a requirement to have your Coast Guard operator's permit with towing endorsement?
I don't know of any information that has that.
Do you know that, Captain?
As a requirement, I don't know of any information that has that.
And it used to be.
I've been here a year, so, yeah.
How about anybody who's been here for more than a year?
Under the current boat captain job description, it requires a Coast Guard's license.
Under the current boat captain, but we don't have any boat captains anymore. Is this new position, does it?
Operator?
Does boat
Fire
operator
rescue boat
require a Coast Guard certification and towing endorsement?
I haven't seen the job spec for this change in job title. I was just aware of the job title.
Yeah, but for them to act, they had to meet the requirements. So they were.
I'm talking about the future.
Yeah, in the future, that's a negotiation item.
It sounds kind of fishy to me. It's either in the job spec or it's not.
Sounds like
It was
nobody
written.
knows. And it sounds like no one in the room knows.
Right, but it doesn't look like we can comment on it until somebody actually has the actual information, right? I mean, if it is not if there's a new job description.
Well, we know
that
for
now-
sure scuba's not required because they haven't done it for.
That's right. Yeah, so I mean, if you want to.
Even have a dive team anymore.
Yeah, so if you wanted to write a letter that we support the recreation of the dive team, I'm all behind that.
No, I don't want to get that specific. I want to say the erosion of
But
qualifications.
I think the presentation, I'm going to be very frank, like you guys know me, I don't see an erosion in the skills that they just presented today. I
Right.
mean, these are top-notch skills, and if you want to communicate a letter that their skills
wait,
have been.
People we're talking about. We're talking about future people down the road.
Okay.
Eventually, if they were to all retire tomorrow,
And they said,
they would find some other people to fill their shoes from the fire station in North Redondo.
And that would be a job qualification that's processed by the Human Resources Department with an agreement by the association to determine the qualifications.
that's not what it says in the sidebar. It says you do it.
That's not where the qualifications come from.
Yeah, no, the
The
qualification, yeah.
sidebar you're referencing is basically that the chief determines.
Must pass minimum qualification screening and selection process as designated by the
By the
fire
chief.
chief.
The fire chief screens. The fire chief does not set the minimum
Yeah,
qualifications.
those are negotiated positions, and they're negotiated through HR.
So
I
we're
don't
going to
have,
change the position name without having this.
I don't have the almighty.
You have a wand?
I don't have a wand. So this gets negotiated by HR and the association, and they come up with terms and conditions. But what I will tell you is that these are some of the best I've ever worked with.
I agree, but they
We're
did.
not worried
But we're
about
not getting
them.
more
We're not, we're not denigrating anybody there,
No,
but
but
they don't
it's
do,
the next
they don't do
batch.
salvage dives anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be another batch of them. They're going to be around for a while, I think.
Do you guys do salvage dives anymore? Are you, if you wanted to, could you?
No, we're not certified to dive.
That's
Yeah.
a degradation.
Well, also, the point is codifying the qualifications they already have we don't know that they are
Embodied in the new position.
part of
we
the
don't-
requirements for the new titles.
No, but we also don't know that they aren't going to be though.
Well-
See, that's my problem with this whole thing. It seems like we're just talking about, like right now, they're performing, I mean,
The guys who are going to implement it don't know.
that's right, well, right, because this is through HR and through,
HR doesn't do the screening, they do.
The letter from the Harbor Commission would just state the qualifications that they currently have should be codified in the
I'm fine with that.
And they don't do training of state.
job descriptions, and we are a proponent of X, Y, and Z that they used to do that is in their future plans.
Yeah,
To our knowledge, there is nothing written down as to what the qualifications are in the future.
That we know of.
But
We
they're
have current qualifications.
Current, but not
current, but
future.
there will be, obviously, there's going to
Those
be.
are
some point, yeah.
negotiated.
But there
Right,
has
there's
been
gonna
a
be no-
degradation in they used to be able to do salvage diving. They can't now.
I'm sorry, I'm just an attorney here. And it seems to me that there was an agreement made whereby qualifications are discussed. If the agreement was agreed upon by both parties, yet no one knows what those
The
qualifications are.
qualifications are internal, and that letter is not even signed. That's a draft, I believe.
That's what they're
If we wait
considering at the
To get the
council.
information, then it's signed.
Yeah,
Too
so the
late.
qualifications are internal. And what we can do is we can transmit the qualifications to HR, and then HR can provide them, which that would be the normal process for the rules regarding employee testing and promotion and merit pay.
So you send the qualifications to HR.
They would, so in-house, we develop qualifications, there's an agreement.
Sorry, who's we?
Okay, so management
Okay.
works with the stakeholders, our association, to say, what does best practices look like? What qualifications should we have?
I mean, is that you?
We put together, not me by myself, I put together a committee,
Okay.
and a committee would then review it, and we'd probably even bring outside experts. But an even more,
There's 6 people and you're putting together a committee. I assume the committee would be a subset of these 6.
Yes. The other thing also is there's a feasibility study going on now by a third-party consultant that can be tasked with providing some recommendations on this too.
Why would we
so
do
some-
that when we know what we want?
Well, it sounds like they're doing a pretty good job, though, of figuring out what the qualifications should be. I'm still thinking we're kind of just beating this, and it may be.
I'm trying to come up with what we say. I think, I perceive a big degradation in number of people and the,
Right.
and the tasks that they're performing.
Right, no, there's no, and with the addition of bringing on a boat ramp and everything, they have to be prepared and better staffed.
But make sure if we're going to do this, that it doesn't reflect on the current staff.
Yeah. We can put that
regarding
line right in there. Yeah, say, we love the current staff, but they're not qualified to do salvage dives right now.
And how many
They're not
salvage
qualified.
dives
Yeah,
will we
but if
have
we
done
wanna-
this year?
They don't have the
I
certification.
guess I have no problem writing if we here decide that we want them to have, be able to do salvage with a dive
I'm
team.
not saying that. I'm saying we can show that there's been a degradation, and those are at least 2 points of evidence.
Okay.
Did you say you were not qualified to do salvage dives, or you just don't do salvage
We
dives?
don't do salvage dives because there's a lot of rules and regulations regarding, first, is it a private sector responsibility? Secondly, do we have the
Hazmat.
equipment, training, background, certification? What percentage of our job would involve that? And then we would have to be budgeted for that.
It's like the boat that sank at the dock at King Harbor Yacht Club. They had to call in a private salvage because of the hazmat component.
But then you're exposing the harbor to pollution for a longer period of time while you negotiate the contract. When they used to do that.
So here's my problem. I found what I was looking for. Harbor Commission, powers and duties, and they've got ordinance numbers. I mean, basically, the Harbor Commission is the planning commission for the harbor.
Correct.
That's really the main duties. And then it says, the commission shall advise the city council on any matters concerning the harbor, and here's the kicker, when so requested by the council. In short, until we're requested by the council to weigh in on these issues, it's really,
Well, it came to us from the council. I think.
No, it came from the city manager.
Oh, okay.
Before I got to the council.
Yeah. We've opined on lots of stuff.
we certainly have.
So-
We certainly have, and the council, of course, have ignored us on many of things too.
And they've
so.
incorporated some of the stuff we've said too, so.
If I could summarize a little bit, I think what I'm hearing is, obviously this discussion was born off the side letter from September 5th. But I think what Commissioner Light is getting at is that over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, he's seen a degradation of qualifications over many side letters that have gotten us to this point. And correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a wish to put a statement in there that you recognize this degradation and you want council to be careful.
And the staffing.
Right.
Careful with the
Did I-
requirements. Yeah.
Right. Did I summarize that?
And
Decently.
that we're anticipating a boat ramp, which will increase the demands
Yeah,
on
I
this
think the
department.
boat ramp needs to be an integral part of.
Yeah.
So it's less on the side letter and more big picture of what's happened over time, and you want to submit a
what
letter.
the future's gonna
Yeah.
hold.
Right, right.
Personally, I think the easiest thing to do is to keep it as a staffing issue. I think everything else can follow in negotiations from that, because the rest of it with regards to qualifications and everything else, it all ends up coming down to money and budget and unions and what they agree to with city management. But the easiest thing is, if you want to talk about degradation, I would not mention, because I do think it does raise the question as to, or cause people to think that somehow our services are degraded, and they're not, as you said, they're not. And so, but we can certainly point to the fact that the personnel has been cut almost in half in the last whatever years. And I think that's real easy, black and white, unequivocal, and is easy to then, and so
like it.
really, that's really, if you want to comment on something,
I think we can say the quals have been reduced.
you can say anything you want, but when you
I
want,
think we can show it.
I think staffing.
Yeah, I like
think
just keeping
staffing.
it simple.
Yeah, keep
And-
it simple,
and
one
just-
paragraph.
So we may need increased staffing due to the boat ramp, and
that makes sense.
yeah, I'm get behind that. I just don't.
I think it should be, I guess, can I make a motion?
Sure.
That we provide a letter, and maybe we can have Greg write it, but that addressing the MOU, that we love what the Harbor Patrol is currently providing. We want to ensure that qualifications are codified in job descriptions so that we can maintain the level of service that they're providing now, especially as we have a boat ramp that will be built soon. And furthermore, we support the future, I forgot what your slide called it, future plans to bring back the level of service that, and qualifications that were lost over time, such as dive, salvage. Did I leave anything out?
Yes, staffing. There's,
And going over after grants to help support these, in addition to the additional staffing needs that would be needed to support that. That was long, but.
very long.
Luckily, we're recording
short
this.
bullets on my thing here.
Dave, are you recording this?
We're at 9:08 PM, so I'll make sure we mark that.
Okay. It's lengthy, but it does encompass what we've discussed for an hour and a half.
So is that a second?
Yes.
Okay.
The one friendly amendment, and I think I lost track because it was so
Sorry.
long. But in the initial statement, you said that you want to codify the current qualifications. I would say codify and enhance to add in some of these other ones.
Yeah, the way I said it
think
was
you caught it
just
at the
current,
end.
and then I did it at the end. 'cause
Okay.
Yeah,
If
but
you
to
did
me-
that, then,
Yeah, to me,
and I second that.
I kind of did that on
Whatever
purpose.
she said, I
I've
second.
already seconded.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
in the discussion though, I have a little heartburn with it because it sounds like they're doing a great job internally, and internally they come up with those qualifications and they know what they're doing. So I think, I mean.
They
it's-
don't.
But like having a Coast Guard license isn't a requirement, but they have
Oh,
it.
we don't know that it isn't. They just aren't aware that it's not currently
I've
in the
been told that it's
qualification.
not, but nobody's fessing up
I've been
to
told that
right
it's
now.
not.
And I can't find any evidence of that.
Well, no, because it's not, there's no public document for it right now, but they could.
Well, that's a lot of
I
transparency.
was,
actually,
I
no,
was
so what-
told
I don't-
directly that because we're a private entity and it's emergency services, that they didn't need one.
Or a public entity.
Yeah, but that's not true.
Right. All right. Okay.
But I'll go with what we've put together. And Dave will.
Well, she captured it well. She said the qualifications
condense
and
it.
then added
Yeah,
the dive.
condense.
And
So, Chair, can we call for the vote?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
All
we're,
right, just making a note of what the time is so I can go back and look at the tape.
He said 9:08.
We'll look it up on YouTube
said
afterwards.
9:08.
Can you rephrase?
maybe we can repeat the motion?
Come on, that's
No.
a big ask.
No, I think you stated it well. It was just
Yeah,
long, so I'm
just
just gonna, have
long.
to- yeah.
Okay, so you're okay?
Yeah, I'm
going
okay
back
with
to
it. Okay, Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Kazan,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilroy,
Yes.
Commissioner Light,
Yes.
Commissioner Abelman,
Yes.
and Chair Bauer.
Yes.
And motion passes 6-0. We'll be drafting a letter.
And I would like to I don't know if we need a motion or it's for referral to staff to get us whatever's written up on the current job descriptions and qualifications and the proposed, what the side letter proposes for job titles and qualifications.
Okay.
And if they don't have it, that's fine, but if they do have it, it should be a matter of public
It should
record.
be public record.
Okay. We'll get that to you.
And can you do it before the next meeting, like email it to us or?
Before our next Harbor Commission meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, thanks.
Is there anything we need to receive and file as part of this?
Nope.
No. All right, and then we are now moving to
We do have to receive and file their
presentation.
presentation.
We did that
Well,
with the
we
blue
did that
folder,
before.
yeah.
Usually you do it with the,
Beautiful.
okay.
All right. All right, we're now.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You guys are released.
Thank you so much.
So much.
Thank you, guys.
So
Yeah,
much.
oh my gosh.
My
Great
apologies.
presentation.
And great job. Thanks for all you guys do. I do want to hear more of that rescue, though.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to go back to L1.
L1, exciting. Harbor
The
Commission
music
nominations, election of
chairs.
chairperson and vice chair. You know, obviously this is the first kind of meeting of the commission new year.
Yeah.
Historically, the vice chair moves up into the chair spot, and the big debate is who's going to replace the vice chair. Obviously, the vice chair's responsibilities are to run the meeting when the chair can't be here, but also you're kind of taking on that known entity that you're moving up to chair that following year.
Did you confirm who's next in line?
I didn't. What I can tell you though is there's no set rules here. I can just
know.
tell you what's happened in the past. So,
Well, the thing is that we've all served as chairman,
right.
except for.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't do it just
I think
yet.
that wouldn't be very
He doesn't have it up,
Sure.
which means we're going to have
I'm
to recycle
ambitious,
someone.
So
But that doesn't mean that they have to move up.
they don't have to. You guys can do whatever you want. You can elect.
They can be a place saver until
Oh, goodness.
he can move up. So,
Is it you, Vicky, that was next in line?
yeah, I'm the old lady.
So do we need a motion?
Well, first we have to do chairman, and that would be, I nominate Leslie.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think we need a lot of discussion to that. She's
Discussion.
eminently qualified. No, I think that.
Yeah. If you want, you can just do ayes and nays. It might be easier. I don't know.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, we have a new chairperson.
There you go.
And the music swells or something. Wow. Phew.
Okay, so I make a motion to nominate Vicky as the
As a vice chair.
vice chair.
Okay, and I could, next year, if Ryan wants to step in, I could step aside. So,
I mean, we'll have this same debate this time next year.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I accept, yeah.
She accepts. All right. So I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, Vicky is our vice chair. And some more
So
subtle
no
music,
need
but still.
to switch chairs today, but just know that seat assignments will probably change up before next meeting. All right.
All right. But Vicky now takes L3, right?
Leslie does.
Leslie does.
I'm sorry.
Uh-oh, you didn't tell me that.
You're technically chair now.
All right. Item L3, discussion and possible action regarding future text amendment to allow electronic signage in the waterfront by way of Harbor Commission review of a design review entitlement.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on this from the staff report, but essentially last year, council directed me to do a text amendment to essentially allow for electronic signs, which currently aren't allowed down at the waterfront. We've got some existing design review entitlement language that is pertaining to electronic signage at schools and at performing arts theater. I'd like to kind of emulate that same process, but instead of the planning commission reviewing those design reviews, obviously it would come to this harbor commission instead. So just like you review the conditional use permits, you would review a design review entitlement that would look at the design, the scale, the size, the hours of operation, all of that stuff for any potential signage. Now, there's kind of two types of signage I'm envisioning winding up as initial projects right out the gate. One is kind of directional wayfinding signage, improving our wayfinding down at the waterfront and having the ability to have maps and interactive kind of elements that you would see maybe at the mall is probably a bad idea, but you know what I mean. And those are like really easily changeable when there's tenant turnover, all that good stuff. The second item that I know is probably forthcoming is we have two business associations down at the waterfront, and there's existing freestanding pole signs that have like Joe's Crab Shack and all those restaurants on there. There's a willingness there that the associations would work to improve those existing signs to have an electronic element. Maybe not the whole thing, but an electronic element that could advertise special events, upcoming things, obviously, new tenants, beach life, things like that. So this would all be done on a case-by-case basis. Obviously, you would have the authority to approve design reviews, disapprove them. You could place conditions of approval on them, like hours of operation, that kind of thing. There's kind of a second caveat to this, being that the city's the property owner out there. When it comes to these entitlement applications, if we're in the planning department per se, and this was private property, we couldn't tell somebody not to apply for something. Like if we didn't think it was a good idea, they could still apply. It would go in front of the planning commission and staff would recommend denial and hope planning commission denied it. In this case, because we're the property owner, we're also the applicant, right? They've got to have our sign off on any application. So there's additional control through me on whether or not, we want to litter the area with electronic signage. It'll get to a point where you're like, whoa, we're reviewing the third design review for a freestanding sign, Greg. This might be the point where we stop. I can kind of take that as heathens and say, okay, we'll evaluate a little bit and maybe see how this goes. So there's stopgaps, if you will, in terms of making sure we don't just get 20 applications right out the gate, right?
I just have a fear of Times Square.
Yep.
Right.
Vegas, yeah.
Vegas, right, exactly.
So Greg, there's a prohibition. The only one that's approved is the Performing Arts Center
Right.
so far. And there's specific rules on what they can post on there.
Yeah.
And that's a city-owned facility too, but what I don't want to, the wayfinding and all that, as long as we can control where and how many,
Sure.
so it's not littered like you say, I'm fine with that. But the big sign, and I would imagine the pier might want one too, is this just the harbor on Harbor Drive? Or are you talking about the pier as well?
I would say,
Both?
yeah, both. I mean, this does open up Pandora's box a little bit in terms of anybody can propose something to me.
We can deny it.
You
Yeah,
can
I was
deny
wondering
it.
what the definition of waterfront was.
And
Oh, yeah, it's the pier all the way to King Harbor. Like it's the waterfront area, right? What I know is that the existing freestanding signs are the ones that are likely candidates for improvements to include this. You can deny those even. But any kind of new freestanding sign would go through this process too.
Can we deny the $300 fine sign that's flashing down?
Yeah, because that's.
My one concern is, to the same extent, I'm sure this is getting in the weeds and we can fish it out later. My one concern is we start putting up advertising for like, hey, there's a sale at this store.
Right.
Right? And I don't want it to become like a mall. If it's an event like, hey, the Kite Festival's coming up, or hey, Beach Life Ranch coming up, or like parking limited because of 4th of July or something, those kind of messages.
The multi-sign advertising, where Ruby's was.
Yeah.
I don't want each one flashing something.
Right.
I mean, that.
Yeah, I don't want to say sale it,
So interestingly enough,
$2 Tuesday.
I was on the planning commission when the previous sign ordinance came up. And it came up because Redondo High School installed a sign without getting permission.
Yeah, that reader board one. Yeah.
And so the ordinance was written in such a way as to make that legal and the Performing Arts Center legal.
I forgot that one, yeah.
Some of the things, though, that were of consideration that are part of that ordinance that should be considered here is, and it's funny because, of course, over time, some of this has become less of an issue, but it was the quality of the sign. So call them pixels or the resolution of the sign. How often it changes is an issue. Of course, you could even go brightness as an issue. I do believe we actually, somehow we also added it so that schools can have it.
Yeah, there's a thing in here, schools can.
Yeah, because obviously Paris Middle School has it and Adams Middle School has it. Edison actually was the first one and they had theirs without asking permission too. But it was North Redondo, so nobody cared.
So that, you bring up a good point. That is another consideration, is there's people living here that would be.
Right.
Yeah, that's why hours of operation.
Hours of operation would be a good idea. So,
and brightness.
I saw the additional requirements, like minimum requirements that were established for schools and performing arts centers, very explicit. The messages can't change over less than 8 seconds, as an example, right? What I did here was, on purpose, kept it pretty broad, just design review, because what staff does when it's kind of this, hey, just review the design, and you go, okay, well, how do we compare this to other signs? What we do is we're like, well, if this was any other kind of sign criteria, this is what we would, look at. And we'd let you kind of take the requirements from other chapters and say, yeah, that's appropriate here. But it gives you wiggle room too. Like where the reader board one has a specific size criteria, by not writing that exact language in here, it gives you the purview to look at scale and scope just for the waterfront. You can get a little more detailed. So
And it would be hard to write one that would fit a wayfinding sign and
exactly.
and a big marquee sign.
I wanted
so-
to make it more case by case scenario, and we can use those as a barometer, and we can deviate as necessary.
I'm good with that. What do you need from us tonight?
It's just kind of a motion that you guys are kind of supporting my idea, and I'll take it to planning commission next.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Looks good
The
to me.
design process, ensure the location, type of sign, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing, I guess, as part of us reviewing ones that would come before us, you would be providing those guidelines as background material. to
Yeah, we would say,
judge.
hey, if this was a school, these would be the requirements. This is what they're proposing. This is the size. This is the messaging, hours of operation, all that stuff. And then you'd look at the design too. You go, I don't like that it's beige. Like you could opine on how it looks as well.
We could talk an hour and a half about it.
Probably.
At least.
At least, yeah.
But the important thing is like the apartment people could come down or the condo people could come down.
Exactly.
And
Comment
voice
'cause it's
their
a public-
opinion.
Yeah.
Because the brightness, well, like that sign on Inglewood Avenue when you get off the 405 freeway.
Oh, yeah.
And as a guy that used to be a planner, a lot of times when you have conditions of approval, some of them can be hard to enforce. Gas station, those like light up numbers on gas stations was always one of those things where we're like, okay, it has to be at this kind of dim level or whatever. Those signs are programmed to where they can do that via computer from somebody's desk and adjust the brightness level. And those gas stations always want to be seen. So over time, they get a little brighter, a little brighter, a little brighter until we smack them and they get a little. In this case, that's a little curbed because we are the landlord and they pay us rent. So there's that additional kind of caveat. It's like, you must follow these conditions of approval. We've got some heavy-handedness in this sense.
So since there's no definition of waterfront, what properties not owned by the city could you foresee?
What do you mean, not
putting
the
in an
definition of the
application?
waterfront?
They're the master leaseholders, like
Yeah.
for Harbor Cove.
So it would be
East of Harbor Drive,
east of
like,
Harbor
they
from,
wouldn't, it's clear that they couldn't submit an application for a sign. if they're east
correct.
of-
Yeah, that's not the water. Now, there is, we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but there is the strategic plan item that I returned to you and council with a process, an outline process for how we would expand the purview of this harbor commission to
Right.
the AES site in particular and a couple others. If we did that and we went ahead with that expansion of your purview powers and took a little bit away from the planning commission in that sense, this likely would follow suit unless we made a change, right? And but we could tackle that.
What if we called it the tidelands and uplands and that's defined?
Actually, yeah, that's actually really defined. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got the line right there, right?
Yeah,
It's a great suggestion. Yeah.
yeah. I like that.
So I make the motion, we support the
Grace.
electronic sign, what do you call it?
Text amendment? Text amendment?
Okay. With the proviso that it switches to tidelands and uplands
Like further
from,
define the waterfront to say,
waterfront, yeah.
gotcha.
Second,
Do that.
yeah.
I like it.
Is chair supposed to second
No, I
stuff?
guess I can't.
I'll second it.
Yeah, okay.
Put me in my place.
The ex-chair.
so can we get the vote?
Yeah.
All
Yep.
in favor?
Vote?
Aye.
There we go. That's fine.
All opposed? The motion carries.
All right. Good first item, Chair.
Good first one.
Thank you. All right, let me go back.
Now we're to.
All right.
Item L for director's report.
I do have a report for you today.
It's written.
I know, 2 in a row.
First, I can't believe this.
Wow.
Mark it on the calendar. This is a major event.
Let's see, recent city council meetings that I want to fill you in on September 12th, the police department kind of did a discussion on the operation of the skate park, just kind of giving an overview of safety. If you remember, there was a couple incidents when it first opened, when we first had the soft opening. That has really died down. It was really a feel-good story. The calls for service have gone down way, way much. We haven't had hardly any complaints for noise. So, the process in which we're closing the park at night is also successful. We've installed a water fountain. That was a complaint that the kids had, and our poor businesses were offering them free water, so we actually installed something there. There's been minor modifications with some netting going up and stuff, just for errant skateboards that we've seen kind of fly around every once in a while. So we've managed to make small improvements, and we're at a point now where it's running pretty smoothly. And that's, that I think this report that we had to go to council and report on the safety was really out of the desire by council that when we had our strategic planning session, it was just after that gang incident that happened down there after our fresh opening. So they wanted us to come back and make sure everything was good, and it is. The last meeting on the 3rd, the RFP for the boat launch was approved. It was on consent. It did get pulled, I think mainly, they had a couple questions for me on just timing and process and all that, but it was also a good news item. I think they wanted to pull it to kind of bring attention to it, if you will. Couple of project updates. The Harbor Patrol dock replacement is done, completely done. So they've got their, occupancy from the Building and Safety Division, but the permit's closed out and it's operating. Public Works has also started the remodel of our Pier Police Department office space. That'll go on for a couple months. They're also
Substation?
Yeah. And then they also just started repainting the 9 sail structures that have been out there. They were all rusty and kind of died down. Each one they think is going to take about a week and a half to redo. So we're hopeful by the end of December that all 9, or I think there's 9, will be done. The Seaside Lagoon remodel project continues to progress. We're starting to do the public outreach portion and get the public's comments on some questions that we have. We're kind of going outward facing first on October 12th. That's at the Farmers Market at Veterans Park. Then we're doing an event October 28th at the car show. In both of these events, it'll be like a pop-up tent where we have a survey, some questions, some pretty images of what we're thinking. And we're going to do that. And then we're also going to do a public outreach workshop at the library on the 2nd floor. That'll be likely November 16th. I'm pretty confident in that, but I'm still finalizing, so I'll let you guys all know. It's really meant for the public. You guys are, of course, going to be invited. City Council is going to be invited, but it's not going to be a public hearing per se. So if you do try to attend, you're going to be attending as citizens. And just keep it kind of in that framework. Some good news items.
So a question on that,
Yeah,
Greg.
yeah.
You have planning commissioners, but it's really a park. So shouldn't we invite the park and?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just mentioned to you guys, but we're City Council, Planning Commission, Community Services Commission. I think that's what they're called, Community Services Commission. I don't know. I always call them Parks and Rec too.
Yeah.
And you guys, all of you will be invited, as well as the public, the boating community. We'll advertise like
So it'd be
crazy.
like that one boat ramp workshop we had where city council and us just attended and.
Yeah, you attend. It's good. It's really important. This thing's all going to run through this commission. City Council was involved in the RFP and all that, but you guys are going to be the end all be all with regards to the entitlements. So City Council, really their only chance to see what's happening is through this outreach process and to watch the Harbor Commission meeting when you guys are actually reviewing the entitlements and the studies and stuff.
When will they have the slides finalized or the drawings? Can we get those?
For the outreach portion?
Well, they're going to have something to show on the 12th. Can we get a copy of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Some good news items. We've got an award, a $35,000 grant from the Coastal Commission to help dispose of abandoned vessels in our harbor area. Shout out to Dave who got that done.
Yeah, nice.
Finally.
Yeah, it's something we've never had in the harbor. It's truly a regional problem. If we force these boats out because they can't stay here kind of a thing, it just becomes a problem in some other port. So having this grant money available to help dispose of abandoned vessels is very important.
What happens to them?
Well, if they're abandoned, there's a process established by the DMV to kind of deem it abandoned, right? You can't talk to the property owner, right? So we go through this process, and there's all kinds of options that the owner can come in at the last minute and say, no, it's mine. But eventually DMV calls it abandoned. We take a little bit of money out of here. we've estimated it takes about $5 to $7 grand to demolish one and dispose of it, recycle, that kind of a thing.
There's no resale value for these ones. The city
Nah, they're pretty,
owns
they're
them.
pretty.
They're pretty.
Yeah, these are pretty
Dodgy.
bad off, yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
And the Midnight Raiders go in and take stuff off them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get
They're
stripped
just
and they,
sitting
yeah,
out there derelict in the harbor.
Oh, interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if it's something that is, they're not paying their rent to the marina, then the marina has a special way of doing it, but they have to hold an auction.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
And if
Like
nobody
the
bids
storage
on it, then they
units
can
and
get
things
rid of it.
Yeah, but that's when it's, operating, but you're right, they're behind on their slip
Oh,
rent.
there's been some
and-
great
yeah,
boats.
Yeah. Also, we got an $800,000 grant from Ted Liu's office to help rebuild the Basin 3 slips, gangways, and docks. It's a good start. It's not nearly enough. $800,000 sounds like a lot of money, and it is. I'm not complaining. But if we really want to see the vision of what we approved in our amenities plan, it includes raising that seawall, cantilevering the deck, plus redoing all the docks and gangways and all that stuff, right? The Harbor Patrol dock that was just completed was only, I don't know, was it 6 or 8 slips, right? And that was, I think it cost us $6 to $7 million to do that. This is 72 slips, right? So we're actually thinking it's going to be more in the range of about $35 million for us to kind of get this done. But we just submitted a grant application with the Secretary of Commerce. It's actually the National, I got to read this part, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration under the Commerce, who's looking to fund projects due to sea level rise. Their window for projects that qualify are very big ticket projects. The minimum award grant is 25 million and the maximum is 150 million. So this isn't small amount. So we applied for the full 35 million. And when you think about it, it's at the lower end of their kind of scale. So we'll find out in a few months how that grant application goes. Obviously, if we win it, it's a game changer. It's a game changer.
Awesome.
So topics for next November, we do have a public hearing next November. It'll be the Suave Fair CUP. They're going to be expanding one last time. If you remember, you just recently approved their CUP. They were occupying the entirety of a building in the Pier Plaza office complex with the exception of one little tenant spot in the corner. Now they want that tenant spot. Don't know why they didn't go for it in the beginning. They probably had their reasons. Now they're coming back and they want to expand, so they're going to come back before you. We also are planning to take the Portofino slip nonprofit sailing item that you referred to staff on either November or December. So that one might be ready for November, but certainly for December. I've been working with the city manager on the topic. We're bringing in community services. We're going to try to provide you with a presentation on why are we here? What's going on? How did we get here? Why is it not being used? And are we following our right criteria? Are we in the right? Are we a foul? What do we got to do here? Okay. So with all that said, we know we're for sure going to have the Suave Fair item. So if you're not going to be around, let me know because we do need a quorum for November to be able to vote on that. Is anybody expecting not to be here?
Yeah. I'll be here.
I mean, things happen, of course, right? But okay, great. All right, so we'll plan to have that November 13th meeting, and that concludes the director's report.
Motion to receive and file.
Second,
Yeah.
discussion.
Go ahead.
Take the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Very well written, thank you.
Yeah, I had one
It's
question.
always nice.
Civitas, is that, that's the.
Civitas.
Cintas, that's it, Cintas. Thank you.
Civitas.
Civitas.
Yeah.
Did they get approved for, they are working on,
We got their contract done, and our first meeting is tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I'm meeting with Civitas to go over the feasibility study for International Boardwalk.
beautiful, thank you. All right, man, good job.
That's you look puzzled. That's our contractor to go over the creation of a potential business improvement district at International Boardwalk. And they're also going to be helping us renew the Riviera Village bid, which has to do that year over year. They're a good company. They're easy to work with, and yeah, we'll be probably tackling the Riviera Village renewal first because that's got some timing constraints, and then we'll focus on the plausibility of International Boardwalk.
What's going on with the tiling or whatever we were doing down International Boardwalk?
The
The
tiling?
new surfacing?
Yeah, the.
Along International Boardwalk?
Yeah.
It's still in design. Public Works did the studies to look at load capacity in terms of weight and what materials could be utilized. You're an engineer, I'm not, but they were happy with the results, and there's not a material that's excluded because of weight, is the easiest way to say that. So now they're identifying material types, kind of going through they say design when they're doing studies. In my mind, when I say design, they're picking out materials and seeing what it's like. They're finally at that stage. I don't know what they actually, if design was planning, I don't know what design truly is, but they're at that stage right now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, no items from staff. On to commission items and referrals to staff.
Greg, because I wasn't able to sit through the whole meeting, the meeting that you discussed vacancy factors and all that.
Yeah.
You saw that, could you send that to me? Because I missed that portion of the meeting.
Do you want the video feed to rewatch it, or do you want the backup materials?
Just the back
Oh,
material.
yeah. Okay, I'll get that to you.
I'm sorry, I
okay.
wasn't able to stay for the whole meeting.
PC Urban.
Any other referrals?
No?
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Wow, that was fast.
That was fast.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good
Welcome,
night.
Ryan. How did you like it?
Thank you, everybody.
It was more fun than I anticipated. I didn't think I was gonna say.
Yeah,